This is George, KJ6VU from the Ham Radio Workbench, and we've had several requests to do a live stream or to a video recording of a show. So we decided for this year's holiday shopping show, we would record to video so you can actually see all of our smiling faces and maybe even share an image of a product or two that we want to talk about. So sit back and relax, and we're going to roll in to record the audio part of the show, and you'll be able to see how it goes while we're actually recording the show. Hope you enjoy it.
Against our better judgment, but we'll do it anyways.
It certainly isn't an advertisement for the hair club for men.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, the lower level though, we're fine.
That's right. That's right. That's because we're in the warmer climes, Thomas.
That's right. That's right.
There we
all
go.
Right, gents,
True. We're all north of the 49th.
Have we punched the record button on audio?
Yes, we are recording audio. Always a good thing. We're going to roll into the show in 5, 4, 3. Welcome to the Ham Radio Workbench podcast, your bi-weekly deep dive on technical topics of interest to the radio amateur. Well, this is the annual shopping show for 2022, and we have a special guest, Thomas K4SWL, joining us, along with our regulars, Vince, VE6LK, Mike, VA3MW, Rod, VA3ON, and Mark, N6MTS, who will be joining us shortly. So if this is the first time you've listened to the show, we'd like to know what you've been doing for the last 167 episodes, because we've been here, and there's a big back catalog you can check out on Apple Podcasts or on our website or just about any podcast player. So there's probably something in there for everybody. So hope you get a chance to check it out. So if you want to find out more about the show, you can go to our website, hamradioworkbench.com. You can follow us on Twitter. The handle is Ham Workbench. You can contact us through the Facebook page and over 2,000 of your fellow listeners, where we share all kinds of projects and ideas and experiences operating in the field and building stuff. You can check that out. Look for Ham Radio Workbench. And also, if you'd like to chat with us live on the air, you can talk to us on the Brandmeister DMR talk group 31075 or on All-Star Node 55915. So hopefully we'll get a chance to chat with you folks there. So before we dive into the actual content of the show, just a couple quick announcements. If you're interested in getting one of our very popular DC power strips from DigiKey, I'm afraid they're all sold out at this point. So I don't suggest going over there to pick one up at the moment, but mark that for future reference. And sometime after the first of the year, we'll try to figure out if we can get a bunch of parts and boards and make more kits available. Probably sometime before March or April, we should reload DigiKey with more inventory. And also, if you're interested in getting an analog discovery, which is a very popular USB-connected piece of test equipment, you can go to Digilent and look for the Ham Radio Workbench bundle. And we have a discount coupon when you check out. Use the phrase Ham Radio Workbench 2022, and that will give you about a third off, saving you about $135 off of that purchase of that wonderful piece of test equipment. So those are all the announcements we want to get out of the way for today. So with that in mind, let's do just a quick hello to start with Thomas as our special guest. Welcome on board today.
Thank you. It's great to be here again. I like this
Great
place.
to have you back. Yeah, well, we're happy to have you here. I see you're in the studio tonight.
Oh, yes. I'm visiting my folks, which in a way, so I don't have a lot of radios or anything behind me right now, just kind of like a curtain. But the good news is they have really, really exceptional internet here. So it allows me to do this without being all R2D2 on the audio.
He's never leaving.
No, I'm gonna move back in.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain now.
I know you'll not know what's behind here. It's our prize for later on, right?
Excellent. You should just get a big reel of Cat5 cable and just string it.
That's right.
Well, it's probably a pretty long one though.
70 miles or so. But
you could do point to point. You know, I'm sure you could figure something out.
Mike's an expert on point to point.
So yeah,
we have all the expertise here for that.
We do. We can spend your money in many ways. So,
oh, I'm sure tonight's going to be a festival of that. Actually,
oh, it is. It's going to be a festival of spend of other people's money. So, with that in mind, hey Vince, VE6LK, good evening.
Good evening, all. How y'all doing?
Very good. Is it cold and snowy yet in Alberta?
It still is cold and snowy here in Alberta, Stan, as I have been doing outdoor POTA activations, I'm really starting to question my sanity. I've been needing gloves on while I have been doing the sacred language of Morse code.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a different sacred language of cursing.
Well, there's been a little of that too, but I can't demonstrate that on a live stream now, can I?
All right. Well, we'll come back to the portable operating adventures. I've been checking out your YouTube videos, and I do remember the last one I saw did have a bunch of snow in front of the vehicle. So I'm real curious about your snowy adventure with the new radio. You have to give us the full lowdown.
All right, you bet.
Mike VA3MW, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Little snow here, but not far from us. Buffalo has a Snowmageddon happening when you get those west winds. So they'll get 3 to 4 feet this weekend. So this is the weekend before U.S. Thanksgiving. So we'll see what happens on the news.
So you don't have as much snow typically as Vince gets out west?
It varies. He can, but his melts the next day. I mean, they only own 2 snowplows in all of Calgary.
Yeah,
That's because there's only 4
removal
people in all of
service.
Calgary. There's a bigger population in your area.
Yeah, well, there's Calgary's not a small town. It's a pretty big place, but they don't plow. They just let people drive around with studs, right? And they used to put sand down for traction, but I heard they've switched that to rocks.
Yep,
Right?
Yeah,
Everybody in Calgary drives around with a broken windshield.
that's right. Because you don't
Okay.
get windshield coverage in your insurance unless you want to pay an additional $2,000 a year. It's pretty insane.
For a $500 windshield.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And good evening to you, Ron, VA3ON.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, we're going to get, Buffalo's going to get 4 feet. We're going to get about 1.5 centimeters. So
Why such a
figure
big?
that.
How far away are you from
It's
Buffalo?
the beauty of a moderating lake is
Mm.
all I can say. We're not very far at all. We're about an hour and a bit drive.
That's right.
That's a big difference in the weather.
So it's just the way the lake sits and the moderating effect. So now we can get it real bad and they get it easy some days. So it all depends.
All right. Very good. Well, we'll get Mark when he joins us in a bit. And by the way, when you're watching, if you're watching on the video, for those of us those of you who are listening to the audio podcast, you're not seeing the video, but you can go to YouTube and you can see the exact same thing, but with the images. And I am in transit between my house in Silicon Valley, which is now sold, and the new home, which is up in the Portland, Oregon area. So right now I'm in an apartment in between. So that's why there's no radios, there's no electronics, there's terrible lighting and probably echoey audio because I'm in the transition between sites. So
So speaking of Mark, hello,
Yes.
Mark.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Mark.
our ears are burning. Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Very good. Well, welcome on board.
Thank you.
So we were just doing a quick intro around, and we're going to hop into tonight's topic pretty quick here. So what I think we're going to do before we get into the details of the shopping part of the show, we're going to attempt. Should I even bother saying this? We're
No.
going to attempt to do a quick round of what's on your workbench. And hopefully we'll get through that in record time so we can get to the meat of the matter, which is spending our listeners' money. So with that in mind, Thomas, let's start with you and see what's on the bench at K4SWL.
Well, so you guys might recall, I don't know if we talked about this in a previous episode or if it was during the field day thing that we did when we all got together, but I spent most of the summer in Canada this year. And when I came back, it turns out that like if you leave for 2 months, sort of 2 months worth of stuff waits for you when you come back. And I've been working on that, and I've had so many DIY projects, just kind of hitting right now, painting, I've got paint on my arms probably still from painting we're doing and all these things. And so, but it hasn't stopped me from buying kits and stacking up projects. So I've got this whole box full of kits. And right now I have a load of ones like from like QRP or our QRP guys. I keep finding their stuff and just buying it. I should just go buy everything in their catalog all at once to just get it over with. I've got one of their end-fed half-wave 40 to 15 meter tuner antenna things. I thought that'd be kind of fun to build. really small. I have a noise bridge that I purchased from them to try out with one of my loop antennas and see how that works. I have a trap dipole that I purchased. I think it was from Pacific Antennas. I've got way too many things, and on top of that, I'm trying to speed through this now. This is the fast part here.
I appreciate it.
So I purchased a second Elecraft KX1 a little over a month ago, and I did it because I love this radio. Absolutely love the KX1. And I've often heard one of you guys say that if you only have one of something, you have none. You really need to have two to have one, right?
However, Thomas,
Mhm.
I'm afraid there's a special condition for the KX1 because
What's
of
that?
how rare that is. That now constitutes hoarding. So, yeah, sorry, I hate to be the one saying this, but
Yeah,
it's true.
Okay, I am guilty. I am guilty with this because so a friend of a friend who I know really well, actually, from my early days in amateur radio, I was licensed in Athens, Ohio. And this fellow was a professor at OU, is in our little radio adventure team that I've been in since I've been a ham, and super, super nice guy. And a mutual friend of ours he contacted me because I wrote an article about the FT817 in the Spectrum Monitor magazine, and he read it and he said, I want to buy a 817 now, I think, for my bicycle mobile stuff. And I said, well, you need to go check with your friend here because he has a lot of radios and he likes you, and maybe he has one. That'll make it really easy to find one. And he said, yeah, it's a great idea. And I said, well, while you're at it, ask him if he has a KX1. Because he loves building kits. He happened to have a KX1, and I knew if he built it, it would be top shelf. And so Ruby, my other KX1, keeps having issues with power output dropping.
Wait a
And
minute.
it's always
Have you named your KX1s?
I name the radios I keep. Yeah. So
Okay.
Ingrid's the second one.
Wait, doesn't everybody?
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Apparently,
Mark?
I'm doing this wrong. My apologies, as you were.
If you want them to last, you name them. And so Ruby, my first KX1, her kit builder just wasn't all that great. There are tons of cold solder joints in her. And so the big project on my desk this winter is to pull her apart, just kind of redo everything I possibly can. And because we keep fixing things and then another one pops up, because I want two functioning KX1s, for stereo operation. So that's
For diversity.
So I got a question for you. For diversity. Well, but as Rod said, you need two. That means so if you're doing diversity, you need four. Anyway, I do have a question about output power. How much on a good day with the wind at your back? How much power do you get out of that radio?
So that's a really good question. Actually, it depends. With the KX1, you can set them up to push the limits a bit on their power output. I think normally you want them somewhere around 3 to 4 watts output power on most of the bands. But a lot of people can get 5 watts of output power, and I've known people who've pushed them a little bit harder than that. I tend not to do that. I just want to keep it in its comfort range. So I'd say that most of mine are like 3.5 to maybe 4 watts of output power, depending on the bands. And it also depends on if it's a 2-band, 3-band, or 4-band, how they're done. And the fellow I purchased this KX1 from, in fact, he had built 2 previous KX1s. And the first one was a 3-band because they didn't have a 4-band yet. Then he built a 4-band after he sold that one. And he actually went back and purposely built a 3-band after that because he actually liked the performance of the 3-band better. And it's 40, 30, 20. So it's the ones I use the most anyway. It is just such a lovely radio. I did an activation that turned out to be a really late one, and the sun went down on me. And I actually used the little logging lamp, which every field radio should have an LED logging lamp on it. I used that sucker to log, and it worked brilliantly. Why can't they do that? It's not that hard.
That was the first real trail-friendly radio form factor rig that I ever saw. And it really surprised me. And of course, now there's a zillion radios that took the idea. I had a KX1. I don't remember how many bands. I want to say it was 3 bands. And the reason I asked about the output power is I never got more than like a watt out of mine, maybe a watt and a half. It was really disappointing. And but I mean, I kept it for several years, and finally I wound up selling it because I never ever used it. Had I known you wanted one, I would have reached out. So
I could
the
use
one
a
that got
third.
away.
You know,
Yeah, if
what
only.
does they say about 2? And then if you get 3, um,
Then
yeah,
you're a hoarder.
Yeah.
Three's an
Vince, right?
auction.
3 is
One is
2.
none.
Yeah. What is it, Mike?
I don't know. Vince says it all the time.
2 is 1 and 1 is none.
And 3 is awesome.
yeah,
3 is hoarding.
yeah. Actually, I have Ingrid right here. So I tend to name my radios after 1930s and 40s actresses. So Ingrid Bergman, and Ruby is actually named after Barbara Stanwyck, who's one of my favorites, and Ruby was her real name. But this is just since we have video, I can do this. Isn't it a gorgeous little radio? It's just
Show us
really
show us the
nice.
light that you were referring to, because people
Yes.
have never seen this.
So I'll show you where it is. I actually don't have batteries. Do I have batteries loaded in it? I have
And
batteries
just to
loaded in it.
confirm, you can't buy these anymore, right? They're
Right.
No,
Yeah,
no.
they're out of
I think Yellowcraft stopped making them maybe 6 years ago or something. But and so they're as rare as hen's teeth. They really are. But this is the lamp. It just has a mechanical switch on it for turning it on and off. I mean, it's just so dead simple and so effective. And like the KX2, you can plug paddles into the front of it so that you can operate it. Sorry, this camera is like backwards on me. You can operate it while holding it or whatever. And there's a love-hate relationship. I don't know what you thought about these paddles, George, when you had them.
I mean, they were good enough to make it worthwhile for the size. I didn't bother putting an external paddle. They're good enough not to bother. But I mean, it was just a flexible piece of metal and with a rubber boot, so it was not exactly a precision.
Yeah,
paddle.
it's not precision. These work really well. I found that this pair, for some reason, just works really well. Another really cool thing about the KX1 that no one ever does is these pots on this side. I'm trying to do this. They're easy to grab with gloves on. Where most pots are the knobs are just a little big. These you can grab very easily with gloves. And even though it's so small and so simple, it has an RF gain control on it. And I love that about this radio. Absolutely love it. Has 2 CW message memories. It's great. But
So this is the most frustrating part of the shopping show, because this is, to Mike's point, this is something you can't buy. So you'll have to troll eBay for those things, and I'm sure they go for a pretty penny.
I looked for a spare. I was looking for a parts radio for over a year, and the prices are just insane. I mean, they're really high for anything. But yeah, that's basically what's on my workbench right now. Lots of stuff. Plus, also still working on the Murphy bench.
Yeah, we have to get to that. Not in this episode, but we'll definitely get to the Murphy bench. All right, excellent. So, Mark, believe it or not, we're trying to do a quick round of what's on your workbench. So
Yeah.
So go for it.
From a Halibut Electronics standpoint, I'm still working on trying to fix the problem in SOAR. We have another theory of what the problem might be. I've been paying a actual professional RF engineer to help me out with this, and we came up with some ideas. We've got some parts and test boards on order that will hopefully help us validate whether this is the problem. But I'm also debating how much time and effort I want to put into this, because I am also convinced that this RF module that I'm using, the SA868, is a dead end. And so while I'm waiting for some other things to show up, I'm also designing an alternative. Using the same chip that the SA868 uses, but designing my own RF amplification section to wrap around it. So from a work perspective, that's a lot of what I've been doing. I sold out of the common mode current choke test rig kits. I made 100 of them, so I sold all of those, and I've got parts on order. In fact, the first parts just showed up today to make another 100 kits. So those will be back on the store probably by the time this episode goes out, actually. They are available for back order right now. So if you go to the webpage, you can order it, and once all the stock comes in, I'll ship them all out. One more thing for Halibut Electronics. I have set up, at the request of many folks on my groups.io mailing list, I have set up a Patreon. I had a lot of, because it's taken me nearly a year to get as far as I have, and I'm still not selling the SOAR radio. Like I'm living off of savings at this point, right? I don't have a steady income, and lots of people have been asking, how can we help support you? We want to help you. Like, I am not asking anyone to go give me money until I have a product to sell them. But they insisted, and so they talked me into setting up a Patreon, and that is up and running. And so the rewards, if you will, for joining my Patreon are things like I'll send you my little halibut ASCII art fish artwork on a fridge magnet for one of the lower levels, right? Instead of stickers that come with each of the kits, I'll send you a fridge magnet. Some of the other ones are shoot, I'm blanking on what it is, but one of them is that I will put your name or call sign on a future product, like in the silk screen or the solder mask or something like that. So, I ordered the circuit boards for the next batch of common mode current chokes on the same day that I set up the Patreon. And I already had, like, by the end of that day, I already had 4 people signed up at that level. And so there are 4 names and call signs on the common mode current choke test rig boards. So that was kind of cool. Anyway, and also things like, if you want, we can spend an hour on Zoom just chatting about whatever you want. Spoiler, I would probably do that anyway if you asked. So, but whatever. Anyway,
but if people put money in the Patreon, could you do it for 30 minutes instead? I mean, maybe that's the the lure.
No, less time.
Like, if you just want it for free, it's an hour. If you give me money in Patreon, I'll limit it to 15 minutes. Yeah,
You know your market.
that's right.
Yes.
So that's what's going on with work. On a more personal side, but still ham radio, what's been on my workbench has been Mastodon. So we are recording this on November 17th, and in the future, we will know a lot more details about what has just started. It is now 6:30 p.m. Pacific time on November 17th. At about 4:30 Pacific time on November 17th, I'm not going to go into the politics. Wackiness ensued at Twitter, and it is looking like Twitter is going to collapse in the next couple of days. We'll see
And
how
they're going
well,
to go to Mastodon.
and we'll see how well this statement, ages over the next few days. But it is looking like Twitter is going to completely collapse. Anyway, I have been working with Christopher, who is the admin of the Mastodon.radio website. And he's been getting super loaded, both from a money standpoint, or his server is overloaded because he's got so many new users trying to sign up on Mastodon, so many new ham radio operators, and his time, because he's the only admin of that instance. And it just takes a lot of his time to do all of the validation and user signups and everything else. And so I have set up another Mastodon instance, public instance for ham radio operators. If you're interested, the website is mastodon.hams, HAMS plural, .social. If you just go to hams.social, it'll redirect you to the right place.
Okay, so I get a simple question, and I think Rod's got a question too. But I'm a total Mastodon noob. I'm a sub noob. I don't even know. I'm more newbie than that. So I don't get how there's multiple servers and how it all works. And because with Twitter, and I wasn't even a big Twitter user for that matter, but there is a Twitter, and if you're on the Twitter system, you can subscribe to, certain people who you will follow. And but it's sort of decentralized with Mastodon. Is there a 2-sentence explanation of
Are you familiar with how email works?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, go figure out email.
Mhm.
And Mastodon is exactly the same.
So does that mean you can point your Mastodon client to different servers and get different streams of people's postings?
You don't need to.
Oh, okay.
Because George at Zafiropoulos.com can email mark@halibut.com. By the way, Zafiropoulos.com is not a real domain, or at least I assume it's not. Forgive me if I just outed you.
It is now.
It is
It
now.
is now.
I was just signing up.
Yeah. George at whateverdomain.com can send an email to markethalibut.com, and the servers talk on the back end. I don't need to be on the same email server that you are to be able to send an email to you.
Okay.
All right.
Mhm.
So just like that, in Mastodon, smitty@halibut.com can follow KJ6VU at mastodon.radio.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
all of your posts will show up on my timeline. And if you follow me back, all of my posts will show up on your timeline. So it is exactly like Twitter. And I'm summarizing a whole lot here. A lot of people are screaming at their podcasts right now. Like, it is not just like Twitter. In the broad strokes, it is just like Twitter, except that instead of an identity just being your username, Smitty Halibut or KJ6VU, it is username at domain name.
Okay.
All right.
Like
and that
email.
entirety,
That's
that
helpful.
tuple
Yeah.
is your identity. And there I can have a smitty@halibut.com and also have a smitty@hams.social. And those are different identities, right?
Okay.
Just like you can have
Different
George
email
at
addresses. Right.
gmail.com and George at youremployer.com.
Right.
Those are different email addresses, even though they are both George at.
Okay, so I'm going to hand it to Rod, and then I want to pin this topic for now.
Yep.
I would like to have a whole nother segment somewhere someday in the future
Yes.
where we talk about this,
Yes.
because as I start to interact with the Mastodon app on my phone, it is not so drop dead obviously simple as email
Yep.
in terms of what's going on, or Twitter either.
Yeah.
So and maybe it is, and I'm trying to make it more complicated than it really is. But Rod, go ahead.
Oh, I'm being much more pedestrian. So if on Twitter the act is to tweet, on Mastodon is the act to mask
Mask.
something?
No, it's even worse. It's toot.
Mhm.
Oh man.
As in
remember
like
this from
an elephant.
My
Right?
mother would say I'm an expert at tooting, but not
Yes.
that kind of tooting.
Not got that kind of tooting,
Oh.
exactly. So
I went to
the-
sign up and I said Smitty sent me and the reason why. So
for which domain?
yours.
Hams.social. Okay. If by the time I'm
Mastodon.hams.social.
correct.
Yep.
Yes, mastodon.hams.social. All right. Yeah, I will get to the approving of your account if one of my co-admins, Alan or John, doesn't beat me to it. It's entirely
you'll figure
possible
it
that
out.
Alan may.
Okay.
So
Very good. Well, anything else on the bench now that we're in the short form of the what's in your work?
no, technically no. It's been all work. Work and
Excellent.
Mastodon
Okay.
have been the
Thank you,
two
Mark.
things. Yep. Moving on.
All right, Vince, the bony finger of what's on your workbench is pointing at you. What's on your bench?
The great rekitting of 2022 is on my bench. And as you will see over my shoulders, there are Pelican cases with my logoed call sign on them with a lid removed, because I figured out how to remove the lid off a Pelican case and still keep it usable. And that is for the KX3 kit, the very pretty KX3 that I have that I've absolutely fallen head over heels in love with. And so that's kit number 3. Kit number 1 and 2, for a very quick recap, because we're trying to do this quickly, although the more often I say that, the longer it takes. The kit number 1 and 2 used to have an HF and a VHF UHF radio in box 1, and in box 2 had all the ancillary stuff. And I've moved things around. I've taken the VHF UHF radio out, moved it into the other box. I've taken the ancillary stuff that the HF radio needed and put it in the first box. So now I have an HF box with a signal link and a tuner and power distribution and a power supply. And I'm going to talk about that power supply later in power supplies that you want to think about for a stocking stuffer. And then the VHF UHF kit has now 2 radios in it, because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And it'll have another one of those power supplies that's making its way to me, so that I've got redundant power supplies and redundant everything, including HF and a field kit. And then kit number 3, the KX3 kit, is going to be different than all the rest, because it'll also be used on my home desk in addition to being used in the field. So it has to be equipped differently to serve.
So does that mean the
purpose.
KX3 is going to be your primary HF station at home?
Yes, because I sold my FT450 off to help fund it, because I'm not, the problem with ham radio workbench is I spend money. And so, so I had to sell the FT450 to fund it. And that's okay. I'm okay with that decision. I came really close to buying something else, and I am going to talk about that later on. So anyway, I've got 3 Go kits on the go right now. I also just purchased a Bravo Hotel 5 Hotel Delta Echo BH5 HDE loop antenna off of AliExpress, and and that either elicits responses of eye rolls or cool, depending on who you're talking to.
I'm glad you did, because I sort of looked at those because I just had to try one out, but now then you ordered one, so now it's great.
Well, so you'll just have to wait like another week or 2 for me to really get working with it, because it just came in yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Just yesterday it came in.
So Vince, is that a receiving loop or is that a transceiving loop?
It is a transceiving loop, and it uses 2 capacitors in it. It does not have an induction loop that the feed line connects to, and it's a really interesting design. There's a variable capacitor in series with the radio, and then there's a pair of capacitors that work their way around the loop, and you switch extra capacitance in to get below 10 megahertz, and you switch capacitance out to get above 10 megahertz. Now, the claims that it does with a 7-foot circumference, that it does 40 meters with 275 picofarads is, what's the polite word, hogwash. But that's why you've got the other capacitor on the output to match to the antenna. They call it the impedance matcher.
Well, now when you say it, are you saying it won't tune 40 meters, or it's just?
I haven't got that far with it yet, but all the common theory when you run it through Loop Calculator says you need 460 picofarads, and this thing's got 275.
You can show the screenshot of it since we're live.
It is part of the problem. So yeah, this is the loop that I got, and that's in Canadian dollars. So it's a very impressive looking loop in photos, and in person it's very impressive looking. It's very good build quality. So
what is the loop material? I mean, it looks like a
Heliox,
coax, but it's okay. I was gonna say it looks like a rigid coax.
Yeah, it's Heliox.
And the mount? And what kind of mount is it on the bottom? Oh,
it comes with a little bitty tripod that's oh so cute, and it comes with a really nice little carry case, so you can wrap it all up and take it with you.
So is it like a 1/4-20 tap on the bottom of the box?
There's a 1/4-20 on the back of the box, yeah, where you can mount it to the tripod. Yeah. And as you can see, one of the photos showed an 817, so it was directly attached to the 817 with the supplied 90-degree PL259, SO239 PL259 adapter. It comes with some adapters. Anyway, it's a really nice kit.
It comes with a choke too?
It comes with a choke. So I'm pretty excited for it. I bought it from the Ham Radio store. Is that the store you've got? Ham Radio Shop store. That's the one you're showing. That's who I buy my stuff from, because he's really nice to deal with. And you can find it a bit cheaper if you look, but I'd rather buy from somebody who served me well in the past. Anyway, I've got that. I've started to play with it, but it's too soon for me to tell. I'm in early trials. So that's that's stuff on my bench, and then I'll talk about the elephant. I'm on Mastodon, but I'm not quite sure why. So it's okay. Everybody's got a purpose for publishing stuff. I like to publish stuff. I'm a reader more than a watcher and more than a listener. And so I publish articles on my website, bu6lk.com, because that's what I like. And I microblog on Twitter, as I have been for over 10 years. So I'm really watching this whole Twitter debacle with interest. And I've put my toe in the water of the Fediverse because I might need it. But I'm not quite sure why I'm there. But that's okay. Mark is going to bring me along, and I am going to discover why I am there in the fullness of time. Anyway, so yes.
It'll be another episode, but yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so we will. Mark and I have already spent some time, and he's been trying to educate me, and I'll admit I still don't get it. But that's okay, because sometimes everybody's good at something. So.
Well, very good. So I think there's a couple of follow-ups that would love to see. One is your experience with that loop, and I'd like to compare notes between my Alex loop and your Ollie Express Loop,
Yep.
I would imagine they're pretty similar results. So that'd be one fun thing. The second thing is, I'd like to see after you do your KX3 build what that looks like. Maybe some close-up pics, and
For
you
sure.
could walk us through the detail of what you did. I did a KX3 portable build some years ago, and mine will be different than yours, and I'm just really curious how you did it, and if I could steal any good ideas from you. So
For sure. If Twitter doesn't implode, you can look on my profile, VE6LK, and you can look for the word super thread. And I am posting all of my consistent build notes in there as I go. I'll go at it for an evening and I'll post 6 or 7 things and a bunch of photos and a bunch of notes around that. So that's how people can keep up with it. So there you go.
Very good. Mike, V3MW, what's on your bench?
Mine's a little different because of work. I actually had to take apart one of our tuner geniuses, the Flex Radio tuner genius. I was having a little issue with it, but that's okay. That's my job, is to have issue with it. And so it was fun to get into the SO2R module on the back, the single operator 2 radio that ensures that the right antenna is connected to the right time, that allows you to transmit through this tuner while you're also receiving. And there's a whole whack of relays in there. And it was a strange thing, but it was fun. It's been a long time since I've had to chase through this relay logic and figure out and ultimately solve the problem. There was still a couple hours of just nobody bug me and some, basic ham sleuthing of a bunch of switches, which didn't require any serious thought. So I eventually got that sorted out. But and then for us at work, which sometimes is a ham radio thing, it's in the U.S. We coming up to Black Friday, so I've had an education in mailers, and so when you get those, if you know what I know now about online shopping, you would never shop online. But in all seriousness, we use a tool called Klaviyo. Amazing tools for making sure that you get an email because you bought X or you bought Y, and you can or you left something in the cart, and while you roll your eyes over that, the left something in the cart stuff more than pays for the subscription of the Klaviyo tool. And this is what we're finding is the little knock on the door said, "Hey, did you really mean to leave it there? Can we help you with anything?" Goes a long way for. And yes, it's automated. Maybe it sounds a little cheesy to us, but we follow up usually with phone calls or whatever. And the tool blows me away. It's really well done. And but I had to come up to speed in that in a hurry because the person that was managing it had left. And I said, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll do it. How hard can it be?" And it wasn't that hard, but the learning curve, like anything, for the first 20% is 80% of the time. And so that's kept me sort of engaged. And then non-ham radio would be closing the cottage. And Rod, we nailed it by hours. Drove home in the snow.
Right on.
And so Rod closes in September. We hang out to the last minute, and that's another full story. But that's my
Playing
short.
chicken with Mother Nature. Yes.
Well, I'll tell Rod this. The drive home was last Sunday, and we started up the snowmaking machine here. The squall making machine had started up here, which is warm winds over cold winds over hot water. And if there's a variance, and there's science this, of 13 Celsius degrees or more, you make snow between the water temperature and the air temperature. And that's the magic number. So north of Uxbridge, Rod, total whiteout, 3 inches of snow, and I'm still on the summer tires in those rolling drumlins, which are hills, and not knowing where I'm going up a hill going, okay, I think I know where this hill goes. And if it starts to slide, this is the thing you learn living in the Great White North. I'll just edge over to the shoulder where I know it's gravel, bite into that, and make it over the top. Anyway, I had no issues, but that just literally comes with years and years and years of driving in slippery weather.
So a question for you, Mike. With this challenging weather and you're trying to beat Mother Nature, do you load up the car with HF radios and VHF, UHF radios? So if you're stuck in a snowbank somewhere, they could find you?
Not in Southern Ontario, because you've got 100% cell coverage. Now, I do have my ICOM ID800, which fits really nicely in the car with that really nice panel with big letters. It's got D-Star, and it scans like a Banshee. It's just a great little radio for that. But if I go further north, if I go as you start to get north of the 45th parallel type of thing. And if I was doing a long drive, it's hard to carry a good HF antenna in the winter because we use salt and we use beet juice, and that just will wear it all out. But in today's world, I wouldn't hesitate to carry my ICOM 705, which is in a nice Nanook case. It's green, and just toss it in the car if I'm resourceful. And then I picked up one of those $100 kits on Amazon because I was poking around. It was a variety. It's 48-inch whip with a whole bunch of loading coils. And I thought, well, yeah, I could probably at least get on 20 fairly well. Lucky on 40 if if I work with the propagation, so that some guy in France can call the OPP back here in Ontario and say, but certainly better than nothing. But I don't worry much about it now because we find our vehicles are just so reliable. But in the winter for us, you do want to make sure you carry warm clothes at minimum, so that if you really got stuck, and that's not uncommon through snow squall world here, to be stuck for a couple of hours in a ditch because nobody's moving, that you just want to make sure that you're warm, and you'll be fine. But don't do anything stupid beyond that.
Mike, I got to say, I'm slightly disappointed. I was expecting you to have an overhead display of your Flex, of a Spectrum display in your car, so as you're driving down the road, you can watch the waterfall. And it'd be great with that snowy background. You
want a heads-up display. You want a heads-up display in the windshield.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's no way this will end poorly.
This is going to end poorly. I keep bugging the guys that we need to put this into, what's the 3D goggles? I've got a pair. I can't remember what they're called.
Oh, yeah, like Oculus.
Yeah, the Oculus Rift, right? So you could reach in with your hands and go, let's zoom in on this guy.
I'm
and
surprised you haven't done that.
Guy and it goes to upper sideband, and that'd be great.
All right, well,
okay,
so very good.
Now.
And Ron, how about you? What's on the bench?
And I'm on Mastodon now.
What?
Well, I've already approved his account.
The first part went into spam, the confirmation email.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Already. Well, I was about to share my screen, but I've messed that up already. That's okay. For people that are following the show notes, there's a picture in there. I've been working on some kind of rolling solution for the generator, mostly for the garage. It started out with, how do I take my Honda 2200 and fasten it down in a reasonable fashion in the back of the pickup truck? And for those of you that have been following the bouncing ball, you know that I put Milwaukee pack-out tie-down points in my pickup, and that's working beautifully. So what I've done is taken that same idea, that combination of the two spiral gel cells, the Optima Blues, the heavy D27s that I've ganged up in there, and they work in conjunction with an MFJ battery booster and some various magic that allows me to run the generator or fall back to the batteries. And they all stack up in one neat kind of cool stack. So that I can roll simply out of the garage if I want, because you don't want to run a generator in your garage. But it allows me to take it out in the rain when it needs to be. It's all relatively waterproof. All the electronics that do all the switching and power distribution are relatively waterproof. Yeah, it's kind of a fun little project. And of course, there's even, of course, a little Milwaukee coffee cup that fits into the grid on the bottom. That's your stocking stuffer.
Is it heated by the 18-volt lithium-ion cells?
It should. I'm working on that. I've got a
heated or cooled.
Drill in there. And
yeah, well, put it in with a Peltier device so it'll heat or cool. Yeah.
Yep.
I love it.
So yeah, I got lots of fun stuff going on there. It is allowing me to make some rationalizations over purchasing more Milwaukee waterproof cases and that kind of thing. So this is my Nanook answer, George. Something a little different there. Which brings us to you, George. What are you working on? Obviously the self-heating mug, yes.
Well, you struck a chord there. By the way, in transit between houses, you'd think I have nothing going on the bench. I have a long list of things to work on, but they don't always have to have solder involved with them. So there's plenty of things to do. So in the spirit of self-heating mugs and the holiday season, have you guys ever seen an Ember mug?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
This makes for a very nice, luxurious Christmas gift. If you want to give a gift that nobody will ever buy for themselves, but they will love it if you give it as a gift, check out Ember, EMBER. They have a whole line of these mugs. I think they might even make like the taller vessels now too. But anyway, you get a little coaster that has a wall wart, plugs in the wall, and then the Ember mug sits on top of it, and there's little pogo pins that heat it up, and it basically you pour yourself a tea or a cup of coffee or whatever, and it keeps it warm. And you can control the heat with a Bluetooth app on your phone, of course.
Oh my goodness!
I'm just choking at the price.
Yeah, well, yes. Let's look at the price. This is a gift, my friend. This is, like I said, you will never buy this for yourself, but but as a present, they're very popular. I'm just going to leave it at that.
This was
Here we go.
I think this was the same company that early on built a mug that you could drink water out of, and it would measure how much water you drank as you drank it. It was like over instrumentation to the nth degree.
That's pretty funny. I haven't seen that. Yeah, these are very popular. You can get them on Amazon. They have them at a bunch of stores.
It's
great.
I said I wasn't going to buy anything tonight.
I
think if you live in Canada, you got to own one of these things.
Mug with a battery.
Yeah.
I love it.
So anyway, that's item number
LED
one.
Readout on it.
Ooh, it's got blinky lights. Hams will love it. I'm a ham. I like blinky lights.
$249.
What? Oh
yeah,
they're like $100. They're $120 or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
the difference in exchange rates right now. We're
really.
butthurt about that, but
it's
Yeah,
probably because it has an iOS app or something. I'm sure that's what it is.
The red one.
Okay, so that's item one. And they just get more expensive from there. No, so I finally got a Mastodon because I could care less about Twitter. Turns out I was right all along. But
I didn't care less about Mastodon either.
Well, that remains to be seen. So we'll see how that goes. I'm interested to see how that all works. I'm hoping, Mark, you'll explain it to me.
So, okay, before we go too far,
Yes.
everybody say what your Mastodon account names are.
Okay, my Mastodon account name is my call sign, KJ6VU, at something, at mastodon.radio?
Okay, is that you signed up on mastodon.radio, right?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm
KJ6VU at mastodon.radio. Thomas, what's yours?
I'm at QRPer at mastodon.radio.
QRPER.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, QRPR at QRPer at mastodon.radio.
easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. Vince, what's yours?
At VE6LK at mastodon.radio.
Okay. Mike?
I guess it's VA3MW at mastodon.radio.
No, .hams.social.
.hams.social. What do we care?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Because if I send email to VA3MW at Gmail versus VA3MW at Halibut, those are going to go to different places.
So I can have IDs on both.
You can, but they are separate. They will be different.
They're unique.
They will be unique identities.
Okay. Is it case sensitive or insensitive?
I believe it's insensitive.
Okay.
Yeah. And Rod, do you have one yet?
Not yet, but it will be Victor Alpha 3 Oscar November.
Actually, I think you do have one.
Oh, do I?
You do.
I sign up for stuff and I never remember.
They have tools for that.
Yeah.
Because I followed you. I know you have an
mugs.
account.
Oh, I went to the wrong one. You guys.
Am I on the CRL or am I on what?
You're on mastodon.radio.
Okay. Well.
So Mike, it wasn't the wrong one because you can still follow anybody on any server.
No, I wanted to follow the lemmings off the cliff.
You have to create another account on the cliff.
Well, okay. We may cut this out of the recording, but I have actually already set up HRWB.social if we want to have a server specifically for us. There are advantages and disadvantages to doing it that way, but that is an option.
Will it be difficult and painful? I'm in.
I am at Smitty at
I don't wanna know,
halibut.com for anybody who's following people, because I like to control my own identity, which is why I've got halibut.com.
Okay, so we're gonna have to have a whole Mastodon episode. I could just
Yes,
I
we
can
are.
tell here. Yeah,
Yeah.
clearly.
/ tutorial.
Okay, so to finish off this this what's on your workbench thing.
Yep.
Let's see. Besides Mastodon, I started putting some blog posts on the hamradioworkbench.com website under the blogs about my portable workbench. Check it out with pictures. Let's see. Vince, I set up my Alex loop inside the apartment with my IC705.
Yes.
And I was operating FT8 on 20 meters and FT8 on 40 meters with the antenna inside the apartment just up against the sliding glass door.
Nice.
Pretty
And-
amazing, isn't it?
And I was making, I'd say 80% of the signals that I clicked on to contact, I contacted.
Nice.
And I couldn't work the weak ones, but I can work half of them anyway. So it really blew me away. I mean, it really proves that in the most ridiculously bad possible scenario, indoor HF antenna, mag loop at that, running 5 watts, you can make contacts.
Yes.
And that's what's made so many hams so successful in their version of ham radio. Love or hate FT8, who
Yep.
cares?
Yeah,
If you have fun with it, have
Mhm.
fun with it.
Because quite frankly, if I wasn't doing that, I could I have worked some station CW? Yeah, I probably would have had to throw a wire out the window, which would have been a little odd.
Put a smile on
Given-
your face, though, didn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, and really, with doing the FT8 thing with the loop was like, I'm not in anybody's way, and it just worked. So I was actually very excited. So Vince, I bet your loop is going to work great for your setup.
I just have to get it out of the basement and try it near a window.
I'll order one, Vince, and we'll do a sked loop to loop.
All right.
There you go.
All right.
The other thing is, I'm thinking about extending my Flex radio setup, and Mike, I'm going to need some counseling
Well, you need it anyway.
on this.
Serial
yeah.
port bad.
Not the kind you're
Ethernet
qualified
good.
to provide.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is how to operate VHF and UHF and remotely. So here's the reason is this, that at the new place, I want to be able to operate the radio from a few different places in the house. And I was thinking, well, I got this Flex radio. That's pretty good at that sort of thing. But I'd also like to work like 2-meter sideband and even FM or something like that. And I realize this is sort of the most ridiculous way to do that. But so I'm weighing off one option of adding a transverter to the Flex, or option 2, maybe remoting the 9700. So what do you think?
They'll both work. There's the challenge. 2 meters is fine. And I'm only talking Q5 transfers because they're a quality device and they work really well. I think you have to talk to Corey though if you want that transverter to cover from 432 megs all the way to 450. So you're asking a fairly broad. Apparently you can do it, so you just have to talk to him about it. Yeah, it's overkill, but it is a beautiful device to look and go, yes, the band is truly dead on UHF, because you can see you've got you can see 8 megahertz of the bandwidth at once.
Yeah, how much?
Right?
Well, yeah, you guys are sampling 60 megahertz, right?
Well, that's we sample from 30 kilohertz to 54 megahertz simultaneously, but we can only display 8. But you can do 2 pan adapters, an 8 plus another 8.
I mean, for my use case, really, what I was thinking is,
if you want to see it,
is sitting at the operating position in the shack. Normally, don't think about the particular radios or models or anything. What I usually wind up doing is having one HF radio on, and I'm usually only listening on one band, even though I could do multiple bands at a time. I really never do that. But
what in the hell is? Sorry, I'm looking at the screen. What in the hell is that, Mike?
So this is 160 meters right here.
Oh, that's
And
AM broadcast.
AM broadcast band.
Oh my God! It's like these cliff walls of roll off, but the
Can you make that bigger?
entire
There you
band.
go.
So I'm trying to describe this for our audio listeners. Video
Drag it
listeners
over.
are looking at the same thing I am.
Well, he will be in a minute. So
Yeah.
Yeah, he will as soon as he figures it out.
As
Sorry.
soon as Vince figures out the video switching.
So while Vince is switching that, I want to point out, people, that we had a very disciplined What's on Your Workbench that was going
And
to
it went out
land
the-
us
that went out the
under an
window.
hour, and
That was the
now
theory.
and now this question came in, and so welcome to hour 2 of What's
Okay.
on Your Workbench.
Technically, Rod, we're at minute 58. So we're 1 minute shy of violating the prime directive here.
isn't that
So
pretty impressive? That's AM broadcast.
That
That's
is really
amazing.
impressive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
so
And then
So, Mike,
ahead.
I'm going to try to wrap this up here. So I think I've just opened a new can of worms.
Uh-huh.
So let me just get the
never
summary
happened before.
feedback from you. So if I wanted to have an HF radio, right, and I want to have, let's say, 2 meter sideband or something like that, something like the Q5 transverter would be a reasonable thing to stick on, on the flex, right? But
They
with a
make-
6400, I could only do one or the other. I couldn't do them both.
But Grasshopper, we can talk more about this. There's a couple of ways to do it. Say you want to do satellite work, which you run full duplex.
Mhm.
So you're up on VHF, down on UHF, or vice versa. Let's rewind. To do what we normally do, you can buy the Q5 transmitter that does 5 bands. It'll give you 2 meters, 220, 440, 906, is it, and 1296, all in one nice box, which is just above. I just have one there. They're $2,000 US. Okay, so now to go to your question, if you wanted to be on VHF and UHF at the same time, how do you make that happen? Mark, pay attention. You buy one, and this is because you'll get the plumbing in this in a heartbeat. As a repeater operator, you'll get the plumbing in this. You buy one transverter on 10 meters IF. You buy a second transverter on 50 megahertz IF. You stick a $50 diplexer on the same output of the flex, and you can do them both at the same time.
Wow, that's interesting. So
The gears are turning, aren't they?
Yeah, so that never occurred to me. I was thinking you'd set up the flex with like a 28 meg IF, and then you'd be stuck on one band.
No. You could do 3 if you wanted to. If you wanted to get, if you could do diplexing well enough, you could
Okay.
do 28. You could do another one, because he's got with the way it's designed, he can give you pretty much any IF you want. But you need, for UHF, you're going to need, if you want from, say 432 to 450, and we only go as high as 54, you got to go minus that, back up
Right.
18 meg
Yeah.
to make it fit.
Right. No,
I'm
that's a
getting
good
out my
point.
calculator to figure all this out.
Yeah.
If I had it on a whiteboard, Vince, it would make perfect sense. We just
Yeah.
put it in it makes sense.
Okay, so I'm gonna pin that conversation here because I really want to talk through this in a bit more detail. And what I'm really trying to figure out, Mike, is how to convince myself to spend this money. So
Okay, so
I want to give you a shot at it.
you can do anything you want for $10 a month. Pull that piece of plastic out, the one that looks like this.
All right.
That's my expense card.
Okay, I think we
It's
covered Rod. I think we covered the what's on your workbench. We're at 1 minute over, so I think we're going to stick a fork in it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the 2022 holiday shopping show. We'll be right back.
Mark, that was great that you did that, because that'll be people want to watch that. What the F are you looking at? No. on
Oh
the
yeah.
display.
Yeah.
It's such a great teaching tool. Like, upper lower sideband doesn't make sense until you see it.
Yes.
There you go.
Mark,
for
your
those of you who
audio
are-
is really hot.
And for those of you who are watching this on
Compared.
YouTube, this is what happens between takes when
Yeah.
we actually take a quick break, get something to drink, use words we're not supposed to use in the podcast, all that kind of stuff.
The argument's
So
beginning.
we will roll back in less than a minute here, folks. Be right back.
I have to go get my widget.
Yeah, compared to everybody else, your audio's hot.
Interesting. Okay, I can back off or
There
crank it down or
was
whatever.
some breathing during What's on Your Workbench.
Was there? Damn it. Okay.
Well, I'm not entirely
Well-
sure it was you.
There's
It might
an
have been
audio
this.
artifact going on. I'm trying to stay muted, and I'm noise gated too, so you shouldn't hear it.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Is this less loud?
That's less loud. Now,
Okay.
when Mike was speaking, there was an interesting artifact going on
Yeah,
when
I
he
was
was
there.
talking. Yeah, when you were speaking and giving your longer report, not when you're talking for a short amount of time.
Was the artifact on me?
I don't know where the artifact was. I'm thinking it might have been somebody's headphones getting picked up by their microphone.
I was just hearing George drink.
Yeah, I can hear that and all the slurping that goes with it because it must be a good drink.
I'm on my Grados. They're open ear, so is that it?
Liquid
Did I get
Death.
that close?
Perfect.
Oh, good for you. We're not that type of YouTube channel. We do not promote what we're drinking.
Liquid Death.
ASMR.
it's water.
Okay,
ASMR will get
temperature
lots of
control
followers.
Mug, $299 Canadian for the black temperature controlled mug.
It's
Which
$100.
size? Because there's a 10, a 12, and a 14 ounce.
The 10 ounce is 120 Canadian dollars on Amazon.
Damn. Do a search for Jovio. Jove.
JOV.
No, it's 4 letters. Joe. Mug. JOEVEO.
JOEVEO.
Yeah, that's 4 letters.
6 letters.
Jovio 10 Perfect mug.
Yeah, that's the one.
And all I get back is Ember and Yeti Rambler.
No, so Temp Perfect. The website is JOEVEO.
Oh, that's a website. JOEVEO.com.
Yeah. I will swear by these. I own 2 of them. They are completely passive, but they're vacuum walled so they don't exchange heat with the outside world. And then they've got this like weird phase change material on the inside that if you pour in super duper hot liquid, it dumps a lot of that heat into the phase change material that holds on to that heat. And so it cools down your drink to a comfortable drinking temperature, and then it will stay at that comfortable drinking temperature for hours.
It
Are they
better bloody
truly-
well do that for this kind of money.
Are
That
they
no,
truly handmade?
I have no idea whether they're handmade. That the ones no. Extra special mugs. No, go to the left. The $45 ones.
I'm
Oh,
looking at the 45.
thank
Well, that's the
I
same
I
price
wouldn't
as
drink
the-
out of a mug that costs $45.
But do
That's why
they
I-
have a something that locks into the bottom of your pickup truck? Because
They
like
do not.
really,
Yeah, that is true. They
like,
do not have that.
That's the standard.
This is a whole different drinking
This is the same price
experience.
as a Yeti.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that temperature state change material stuff thing that they talk about is not BS. It is full on legit, and I love these things. They will stay warm for hours.
Made with real depleted uranium.
Yes.
That's where they put the moon rocks.
I had
Weapons
this
Liquid
wonderful
thing in their face.
thermos brand plastic mug that my brother brought me back from a truck stop 30 years ago. And I carried this thing around with me for 15 years, and it was plastic and it was filled with stuff. And I swear 2 hours later, my coffee was still hot. And it didn't have any of this fancy stuff in it.
Yeah.
Do
Like-
they have to have firmware upgrades? I'm
like,
just asking.
Get off my lawn.
Extra special mugs, $280 US.
That's insane.
I'm pretty happy with my Yeti.
I really like just, my
That's what
Right.
you were drinking with, Rod, right? You have a white one?
China
I've
mug.
got a white one that was filled up, and then I depleted my my lookalike, which is the Milwaukee one.
Yeah.
So, by the
All
way,
That's- Yes.
one thing I'll note is it's possible that I'll have to switch over to different. My mic may change here in a little bit, like in, I don't know, 30 minutes or something. I have this Mix 3 Pre-3 sound card interface, everything sort of device that works really well. But it uses USB-C into my MacBook Pro. And I didn't have an extra USB-C to USB-C cable. So I made something to power my MacBook, but it doesn't have a charger that's like enough to really give it what it wants in terms of amperage. And so the MacBook slowly, even though it's like it's powered, it's just slowly being pulled because the Mix Pre-3 is also powering itself off of the MacBook. So at some point, I may just be using the microphone on here or the microphone on my laptop when that.
The mic you're using now sounds really good, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is sort of my little mobile setup, and I like this, but it'll sound really crappy when I move to my Bose headset or whatever.
Well,
For at least
propagation
until
changes.
I know. Well, it'll once I charge up the laptop a bit more, I can probably plug the Pre-3 back in. But yeah.
Okay, doke. Well, if something happens, we'll just keep going.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go ahead and roll back in, and we'll pick up with the first topic. So the topics are broken down into about 6 or 7 categories. So the first bucket is radios, and I think what we're going to do is I'll tee it up, and then we'll rotate through each person, and then you make your case for your recommendation, and dare I say, keep it brief. All right. We're recording. We're going to come back in 5, 4. So let's get into the 2022 shopping show, and we're going to break down the shopping topics into about half a dozen categories. And the first category is going to be the big one, which is radios. So we're going to do a bit of a roundtable here, and each person is going to share what they are interested in new radios. And what we're trying to stay away from is like, okay, what radio would you recommend for a new ham? 7300. I mean, there's like some sort of obvious answers for sort of obvious questions. We're not going to do that, but rather each one of us is going to talk a little bit about a radio that we either recently got or would like to get that we think is unique and interesting for some reason. And so I think we're going to start with you, Mark, and find out what is the radio that's on your mind that you would recommend to listeners.
Yeah, so I most of my items for tonight are going to be things that I saw at PacificCon for the first time. So this is my first ham convention in several years, and so I got to see a lot of new things. And the radio that impressed me the most is the Anytone 578, which is a DMR mobile rig. It's kind of the same firmware and same functions as the the Anytone 878, which is their kind of the go-to DMR HT. But the 578, their mobile rig, has always had this little itty bitty tiny screen on it. And as a mobile rig, that is just bad, because I got old man eyes and my eyes are getting worse, and having a little tiny screen on the dashboard that's that far away is very difficult for me to read. And while I'm sitting at my desk, that's one thing, or if I've got the HT in my hand and I can bring it closer, that's another thing. But in the car on the road, I do not want to be fussing around with a screen that's too far away to be able to read. So I don't recommend the radio by itself. However, I saw at PacificCon, they have the BT01, which is a Bluetooth speaker mic with all of the controls, including the display, on the speaker mic. So it looks like this little tiny HT with all the controls and displays on it, but it's actually just a Bluetooth connection back to the mobile rig that is permanently mounted in your car like any other mobile rig. And I really like that model. I'm not so sure I like having to hold something in my hands to be able to make changes while I'm on the road, but I do kind of like having the display in my hand and being able to kind of hold it up and driving, I could look forward and just like bring it up off to the side. And, I don't know, it's kind of crossing over with holding your cell phone in your hands. And so it may not be perfect, but it solves maybe it doesn't solve, it addresses the little tiny screen on the dashboard problem that I don't like about the 578. So that was one of the radios. And then also Connect Systems has, for their mobile rig, and I'm blanking on the model number, I want to say it's 800, they have like a friggin' huge display. The thing's probably 7 inches in diameter, or diagonal, but this just ginormous display. It's almost like a tablet, but it's the good kind of LCD that's got it's the reflective kind, so you can see it in bright sunlight. And yeah, that one was also really interesting. But so the point being that they are finally coming out with usable UIs for a DMR mobile rig that is not a commercial radio, because the commercial radios are great and usable and have good displays, but they lack functions that us hams want, like front panel programmability and stuff like that. I really want a ham optimized, DMR capable mobile rig, and the Anytone and the Connect system seems to be kind of headed in that direction, so that excited me.
But I got to throw in a comment on that thing. I heard about that, what you had mentioned it, and I looked it up, and the model number of the display is the CS for Connect Systems dash BFD. It's, it stands for like the
Big functional display.
Yeah. So you have to buy it just for the name. I have nothing else, but it looks really nice.
FD. That is brilliant. I didn't, if I did see that, I must have seen it and didn't hear it out loud, and it didn't register for me.
The BFD.
Oh, it's even color. Yeah. Okay. So I was wrong about it being the reflective LCD, but it is very bright and, high contrast. So it's easy to read.
So by the way, I was, just looking at that. So it's compatible with the, it says Yaesu FT857.
What?
Yeah. So
The BFD?
Yeah. It says the CS-BFD is now compatible with the FT857, which is, by the way, not available.
Yeah.
New. But anyway, the 857, for those of you who don't know, is the 100-watt HF 2-meter UHF mobile radio that Yaesu made for about 20 years, and it's been discontinued for a few years now. So anyway, this is now compatible with that discontinued radio. But there's a lot of those radios out there, so that's kind of interesting. And the display on the 857 is tiny, because it's a mobile form factor. So that's kind of a cool feature.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark, you need to buy I want to know if the little Bluetooth handheld thingy really works when you have the radio like in the trunk of your car and you're at the front of the car and you're using it. I want to know. You've just got to go ahead and get it and install it and tell us how it works.
We need a range test.
Yeah, we do. We do.
I mean, it's Bluetooth. Bluetooth from the front of the car to the back of the car shouldn't be a problem.
No, but that's not his point. His
point is that
do
I
at
need to buy it.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I was super impressed, and I held the thing in my hand, and it felt really good. It also has a mode where you can connect it with a RJ45 cable if you don't want to have to deal with recharging batteries and stuff like that. So you can either tether it or do Bluetooth. I was just it impressed me while I was there holding the thing in my hand and playing with it.
So I think a great application for that kind of a radio is if you live in a place where you don't want your control head to be visible to the outside world because you're afraid someone's going to break into your car and steal your radio, then you just put the radio in the trunk, and then the whole control head, mic, and everything is that little HT shaped thing, and no one's gonna know you get a radio except for the whip on the car. But aside from that,
put the little HT thing in your console, or in the little
just stick it in the glove compartment or whatever, and when you're not using it. And I assume you could still route the radio to a mobile speaker, so you don't have to listen to it on the tinny little speaker, if there even is one. Is there one in the little mic unit, or is that just a microphone?
That's a good question. Bluetooth mobile speaker mic. So I'm guessing it's both. Yeah.
Well, very good. That sounds like a pretty cool thing. Thomas, how about you? What's in your radio recommendation list?
Okay, I've got an hour for this part, right?
Go for it.
An hour for this. Okay, cool. So I'll start with sort of the most affordable, and I'll look at, I'm kind of primarily do CW now. And the really cool thing about learning CW, like I don't think anyone has to learn CW to become a ham or anything like that. I don't get into that. I think CW is just a wonderful mode. But what it does do is it unlocks the door to some very cute, tiny, and very inexpensive radios. And almost in the stocking stuffer category. They're so affordable. And one that I really love is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Venus SW3B. This is a radio that's designed by a ham, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, or his call sign, in Hong Kong. And it's a 3-band radio. It's sort of like the Mountain Topper MTR 3B in size, except it actually has an RF gain, an AF gain control, and it only has one CW message memory, but it's 3 bands, and it costs $188.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a great price. And the radio, it has no, variable bandwidth or anything like that. It's very basic, but it works beautifully in the field. A very efficient little radio, and you're hard pressed to find anyone make any negative comments about this radio. It works very effectively. And I went to the W4G Soda Camp Out last month in North Georgia, and I took it along with me, and I hadn't had it on the air in a little while, to be honest. I've been rotating around my radios, and I just kind of came back up to it, and I just had this nice little peaceful activation with it. And I thought, man, this thing is so amazing for $188 that it's just so affordable. Okay, so now that's the SW3C. There's the 3B. Vince is showing a screenshot from Venus. The 3C is more like a, if you can call it that, like kind of a tabletop factor where you have just kind of a traditional faceplate controls. The SW3B has top mounted controls like that's it right there. So it's like it's really small. It's the size of maybe a little bit bigger than a stack of playing cards. The profile is has a bigger profile than the Mountain Topper radio because it has those pots and things on top with the knobs and everything. So it does stick out a little bit more than an MTR 3B, but it's super, super lightweight and just a joy to use. So if you've ever thought about getting a nice little 3-band CW only radio, you can't have more fun with $188.
By the way, if you compare that to the Mountain Topper, those are about $350, $400, aren't they?
They are about $350, and they don't have an RF gain control. They don't they don't have an encoder. You have to use buttons.
Oh, right.
But the thing is, the Mountain Topper is a great radio. I mean, it's difficult because the Mountain Topper has more CW message memories. You can change the side tone volume on the Mountain Topper. You can't do that with the SW3B. Like you really, really can't change the side tone on it. But they both have their limitations when you have a radio that small and that affordable. But I love it. I love the Mountain Topper too.
So when you get into this really tiny radio zone and look at, I'm violating my first rule, by the way. I just realized I said let's make this quick, and now anyway. I do have one other question.
That wouldn't last long.
Yeah, well, you're right, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll remind
Thomas,
you later.
Thanks. When you looked at
it's almost like we've listened to the show before.
When you look at this radio, what the heck was I going to say? So when you look at this radio compared to you guys aren't helping any, the Mountain Topper, is there, besides a few of the feature differences, I would think they'd be pretty similar in receiver performance. I mean, just for casual, not a technical assessment, would you say they're pretty similar?
Yeah, they're very similar. Neither one of those are contest grade radios. They're not meant to be. You're usually on a mountaintop and not, hooked up to, I don't know, some kind of massive Yagi and trying to work, DX with it. They work beautifully in the field, and both of them. And the audio characteristics are very good. Both of them have very pleasant audio, very low noise floor. The Mountain Topper, I have to say, the low noise floor is so low on it that when I use it with like a loop antenna, or like a manual antenna tuner, it's hard to tell when you're peaking the noise on it because it's just so darn quiet. It's hard to tell, but the SW3B is just fantastic little radio.
How would you compare that to like a QCX?
So the QCX Mini is also amazing. The QCX Mini is one of my favorite little. I've got one. Happen to have
of
one
course,
right here.
Of course.
I got one right there. Is this
one
a
right here.
SDR or is it a super hit?
This is, I think, a super hit. I think. I don't know what it's not. The QCX.
Are you talking about QCX Mini?
Yeah, the QCX Mini is.
It's a direct sampling.
It's yes, but it's not it's not software defined. It direct samples into INQ and then does the INQ phasing in hardware.
Yeah,
but there's no mix,
and it's very affordable. They're monoband. They're wonderful, like wonderful little radios. I actually I haven't even read it yet because I haven't gotten it in the mail yet from the UK, but actually did a review of the QCX Mini for Radcom, and it was in their October issue. But I get them like 2 months later here in the States. But it's a great radio too. I mean, gosh, I could keep adding radios. Thank you for that. That was a softball.
Yeah, well, I figured it's like asking Rod about the nylon bag. We could be here all night.
There you go.
So the as sort of another radio that is really a step up and a proper upgrade from the SW3B is one of my just favorite radios from this year, and that is the Pentec TR35. And I'm holding it up here. It's a little bigger than the Mountain Topper series or the Venus or any of those. It's probably the size of like I don't know, a little, not quite the size of a paperback book. It's not even.
I
quite
love
that
the
big.
switches.
And it's all John WA3 RNC runs this company. It is a kit. You can buy it as a kit for I think $279 or fully assembled and tested for $379. The kit is beautifully laid out. Like you don't get a bag of parts. You actually get individual little packs with each of the components you need for the different stages of the kit build. All of the toroids are pre-wound, and he designed it so that there are no embedded deep menus on this. Everything has a switch. It has an AF gain, RF gain. It has a keyer speed control and volume control, and then an encoder, of course, and then these mechanical switches which you can use. And actually, what was really cool was he designed this and later decided to put in a CW message memory keying system. You can put 2 in there, and he very cleverly put it in on top of these switches. It's amazing. But the characteristics of this are superb. I have used this in CW contests environments, and it held its own in that. It was able to handle all that close in, really, really cramped RF dense environments, really well, actually. Very, very pleasant audio and receiver characteristics. And it has a little OLED display. Now, that's a little hard to read outdoors. I'll admit it's a little hard to read, but gosh, I mean, it's a great radio. It's a 4-bander, so it's 40, 30, 20, and 17 meters. CW only. And another really cool thing, it has a dedicated key for a paddle, a key port, and also a straight key port on the side. So you can actually have a straight key. I mean, you don't have to switch anything. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful radio.
Keyer if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can plug in an external keyer on that straight key port very easily, and also super affordable and just a great radio. To keep it short, because I'm trying to do that now. If you're into single sideband, something that this is near and dear to me. By the time this is posted or has published, I actually just published on QRPR.com an article about the enduring qualities of the Yaesu FT817-818 series radios, and it's really true. I got a lot of I won't say who, but I got like another ham that contacted me once when I think I made a couple of videos with the 817. They said, you really need to stop using that radio because it's not a current one. And, there's so many better radios now that you have at your disposal. And I thought, no, this is the 817-818 is still one of the most affordable. I think it's some of the best performance that you can get from a general coverage radio for the price. They're, you can buy them new for what? I think about $650 or so. And
Can you still buy them new?
You can buy the 818
818.
ND
Okay.
new, and but the radio is really unique. First of all, it does single sideband, CW, whatever you want to do. It doesn't have a built-in sound card. You're talking about 20-year-old technology, really. This has been a cash cow for Yaesu for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
But the radio has 2 antenna inputs, a BNC and an SO239, that you can switch, with a menu. I mean, I don't know of any other radios that really have that. That you can take to the field. It has a battery pack that you can put in there. You can mod this radio just all over the place. One sticking point with it is it's hard to get narrow mechanical filters for them now. It has 1 slot for a narrow mechanical filter, but I found there's a fellow in Poland who makes the boards. He made a big run of the boards that you can use to put in the 817, and he's modified those so that you can buy a Collins filter on eBay for maybe, I think I bought mine for $108 or something. And then he'll send you the board and you just solder them together and stick it in your radio, and it works beautifully. So I have a narrow CW filter in, and actually I have two. I have two 817 NDs. The first one I bought for $450 used, and the second one I bought for $300 or $350 used.
And their names are.
I like how you think, Mike. Actually, you know what? I haven't named either one of those yet. Because
Oh, they're
I didn't
almost
know if
gonna
I'd
die.
keep both. No, I didn't know if I keep them. I got two because I wanted to do full duplex satellite stuff. But I know this guy that's coming out with a device
Yeah.
that may
Ah.
actually make it to where you don't need one of those extra ones. But then again, I did make a separate. I have narrow CW filters in both radios, so I'll probably never get rid of these. They're
Yeah.
built like a
You
little
didn't
tank.
name them because you didn't want to become attached to them.
To them like pets. They're pets. Let's admit it. Yeah. So the 817 is the one half of the venerable FT 1634, which is the one of the best radios for operating satellite sideband, and that's one thing that the 817s will do that SOAR does not do, which is sideband. SOAR is inherently an FM only rig, so if you want to use work the linear birds, you need a different radio. So yeah, the FT 1634, it's two 817s. The 1634 is a very common satellite setup and a really good one for that.
If you
and
you can put the BNI DSP filter in the 817 and 818 too. It's a
That's
fun
right.
little soldering experiment
yes, it
because
is.
you have to remove a cap, right? And you bridge the cap where the audio path just travels. But
Mike,
I tell
are you
it's a
talking
game-
about the BHI noise canceling
Yeah.
filters, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
but they're not like a audio passband filter, are they? Or are they
Yes,
just noise?
they're audio at the audio level.
No. But I mean, they're noise reduction filters. They're not like audio bandpass filters.
This
are
is
they?
you're thinking soda beams. It's a soda
Well, I
beams
got mine
filter.
from BNI.
Oh! I was
Oh,
thinking
well,
of the
maybe there's-
BHI, the guy in the UK that makes the noise canceling stuff.
Maybe
BHI and
you're right.
BNI are two different.
Oh, I don't know what BNI is.
It is, but these things have been, people usually mod their 817s or 818s, and they're just fantastic radios, and they work well. They've got great audio. I like their receiver characteristics, and you can't have more fun. Again, for like used, you can buy those for just such a great price, but even brand new, you can buy them brand new for $650, and it performs better than a Shegu, like in terms of the audio and overall characteristics. It's a solid radio. And by the way, if you want to build one of the full duplex satellite systems, you don't even need to buy one that has working finals as your second radio. You can get
That's
one
true.
with blown finals because you're
Yeah.
just receiving with it, and you can get those for like $200. So
And then Thomas puts them in a plate carrier and puts them as armor on his chest and on his back because they're that heavy and that rugged.
He
about
names
the right
them
shape.
one up. He names them one up and one down.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh wow. Okay. Hey Vince, how about you? What's your radio pick of the day?
So it would be low-hanging fruit for me to talk about a KX3 because I'm really thrilled about it. So I'm not going to do that. That radio's been out for a while. I think people really understand it. The radio, so I haven't spoken about this yet out in public, so now I'm going to do that tonight. The radio that I came this close to pulling the trigger on because I was blown away with how good it was the Yaesu FT710. And so this radio, to everybody on the surface, this thing looks like an IC7300 in terms of, speeds and feeds, forms and functionality, touchscreen, color this, blah, 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 right? All of those things. It looks very much like a 7300. The thing where it differs is this radio ships with an external speaker. So you say, Vince, I can buy an external speaker. So sell it to me cheaper without it. Dear listener, dear reader, dear watcher, you don't want to not have this external speaker, because what it also does is it has a port for that external speaker. The AESS part of the name that I didn't say, FT710 AESS, is usually how you see it written out. I want to say Advanced Acoustic Advanced Sound System or something like that. And with apologies to Yaesu because I can't remember it offhand. And what it really does is it says I can create an audio crossover. That's the word I'm looking for, an audio crossover in the radio. And I can channel all the frequencies above crossover point to the external speaker and channel all frequencies below the crossover point to the other speaker. So now when you're sitting
Wait. The other speaker being the internal
The
speaker on
internal
the
speaker.
top of the radio, or
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Excellent question of clarity. And the best way to use this thing, and it'll do it in the phones too when you plug in. So now it's quasi stereo. The best way to use this thing, because the external speaker will slide on either side of the radio, is to have that external speaker on the right. So I was sitting with this at the candy store not long after I set it up as the floor demo, and I was trying to work NJ7V Charlie on one of his summits, and I got out a key that we had in the store, and I made the contact. But as I'm listening to it, I'm playing with the AESS settings, and I swore it was almost like listening in stereo with full dimensionality. So it really makes a difference. Now, there's only one other radio I'm aware of that does this, that creates this quasi-stereo effect without doing phase shifting the way Bob Heil's headphones do. I've spoken about my Pro 7s before, and I think the Pro 6s do them as well. That other radio is KX3. So there's very few radios out there that do this. Now, is that worth buying a radio for on that feature alone? I don't think so, to be fair. Rob Sherwood rates the FT710 reasonably highly. I found it easy to navigate. I can't say that with other products that I've tried, but you know, your mileage may vary. That's a personal taste sort of thing. Anyway, there's my picks for radios.
You can do George. You can do the same thing, and Mark, try that on a 6400 with 2 slices on the same frequency, and slide your bandpass filters so you have a higher and a lower one in CW, and it gives you this positional effect as you dial.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, I see. So like it makes it stereo.
It doesn't make it
It
stereo.
does actually. Well,
Your brain processes it as stereo. You think you're hearing stereo, but it's a crossover, Mark.
But
Yeah,
you know,
so
frequencies below 400 hertz go on the left side. Frequencies above that go on the right side.
So what happens as you're tuning across the band is that
signal-
you're like it's like you're getting a stereo effect of the frequencies, because
a
as
positional effect.
positional effect, because as a tone comes up from the low audio frequencies, it starts in the left ear, and then it's
As you
when
move
it's
to
right in front
VFO.
of you in the tuner, front of you, quote unquote, it's centered, and then as you go past it and it gets higher up, it goes off to the right or the other direction. I get it. That is
Now, if you're a
Exactly.
contester and you're running on CW, this positional gives you a great advantage.
yeah.
For sure.
At
it was.
first,
you
I
can
thought you were
mentally
talking
focus
hogwash,
over
but
here.
now that I understand what you're talking about, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So if you look at the spectroscope, I'm trying to describe this for people who may not be understanding it yet. If you look at a spectroscope, you know, the spectrum scope or a waterfall, the
see if I can
channel
set
that
that
you're
up.
tuned to is right in the center. And then channels on lower frequencies are off to the left, and channels on higher frequencies are off to the right on the display. Now take that off to the left and off to the right and put that in the audio that you're hearing. So the channels that are lower in frequency are in the left ear, and channels that are higher in frequency are in your right ear. And as you tune across, you'll hear those signals, like a given Morse code conversation will sweep from left to right. I understand what's going.
That's pretty.
I've
slick.
got to go play with that now.
It's pretty
Hang
wicked
on,
cool.
I can give you a visual on this if we want to digress for a second. So just a second.
We can digress for a second.
Sure.
So let's talk.
It's an incredibly powerful tool.
Well, so let's talk.
Wow.
So I dropped Rob Sherwood's name, and let's keep in mind that for Joe Shabodniks, guys like me, anything in the top 50 on Rob's list is probably going to be good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a sophisticated, heavy-duty contesting kind of guy. And
Spoiler,
so it's
even the heavy duty, sophisticated contesting kinds of guys probably won't be able to tell the difference either.
well, yeah, and so and that's fair. Mike's going to set this up on his, and we'll see a live demo here in a minute. It's a very cool feature, and so as I help people at the candy store select their radios, there's kind of a point where everything's sort of the same, and then you start spending more money, and then you get into feature set differences. And this is one of those really unique feature set differences, and especially at that price point, You don't see it anywhere else. Some people complain to me, well, gee, it isn't the FTDX10. Well, guess what? No, it isn't. It has one stage less in the receiver. And don't ask me which stage, because I can't remember all this stuff. I have to open up a manual just like most normal people do. But it's priced right for what it does. That's my take on it,
Hey,
Mike.
so just before you go off
Yeah.
that for a sec,
Yeah.
so the 710 is priced at about $1,300, right?
If you say so.
Well, I think so. It's around,
Yeah.
well, maybe $1,200, something like
Sure.
that. The FTDX 10 is like $1,600, isn't it?
Yeah, just a few $100 more.
Yeah,
That's
so
about
it's a
right.
few hundred. So I find it really curious that they have two radios that are almost within 10, 15% of each other. How do you decide which? I mean, it's not like one was much older. They're all. I mean, the
They're
FTDX
both
10 is a
within
year
a year.
old.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So why do you think that's? How do you discriminate between the two?
I don't. I find buying a radio is a very tactile experience. Before I bought this KX3, for example, a dear friend in Calgary, Peter V6KK, he loaned me. I probably shouldn't have said his call sign out loud because now everybody's going to hit him up for this. Sorry, Peter. So he loaned me his KX3 for just a couple of days so that I could try this radio. For me, it's a tactile experience, and I always encourage customers to go for tactile, because what I hate to see happen is somebody put up a radio on QRZ.com. I bought it a week ago. I'm asking $100 less than I paid for it. I didn't like it because they didn't have that chance. So for me, it's a very different experience, a very different buying experience.
So do you think between the FTDX 10 and the 710,
there are people who want the different radios? There are people who are price constrained. There are people who want the ergonomics that one offers versus the other.
Yeah.
if you squint, they look the same to me. I mean, that's
but
why I'm just curious.
the DX10 doesn't have an
better.
ATU, right?
The DX10 does not have an ATU. That's correct.
Yeah, and the 710 does.
Yeah, and the DX10 is physically larger, about an inch and a half. So, hey, Mike, do you have that demo ready to show? Or
Yeah, let's bring it back up.
Yeah.
So I've set up a flex here, and I put it in upper sideband, lower sideband, because it just made a better picture. Over here, we've got this in lower sideband, the center carrier here, and I slid the audio all the way to the left. And if we could do this in stereo, I would play it, but it's only a mono broadcast. And then I put another receiver slice on the same frequency and slid that all the way to the right. This is just one way we would do it in our world, and then run some software to link these VFOs together so that when you tuned, if this big CW signal here, would move around from one ear to the other, and then you'd play with the taper and stuff.
So,
But
Mike, you can
that's
route
the
the
visual.
audio from receiver 1 to the left and receiver 2 to
Yeah.
the right. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a similar sort of that creates the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Except you don't want to do it with upper and lower sideband because that
No,
will-
you'd go. I mean, I'd put them both in CW, which I
Yeah.
can easily do, and it would give you a slightly different picture, and CW and CW, and then I might change the filters on both. So, but it takes a second to set up, and then you'd probably, these are both the same, so you wouldn't hear any different. But maybe I've got a 250 on one and a 500 on the other, and slide the audio wider. Now this is a totally different effect, but it does give you a spatial event, so that if you were working these guys here, or they would slide around. But you really have to play with it, and that just, if you haven't thought about using the stereo feature of your radio and a couple of receivers, there's a whole different world of cool things you can come up with. That's all.
Very cool. Hey, Mike, while you're at it, do you have any other radio suggestions?
I do, actually. So I wanted to be a little different. Because I just saw it one day and I thought it looked cool, I actually did pick up a Zygu 6100. I don't think it's near ready for prime time, but darn, it was cool because it's an SDR, and guys are starting to hack into it. It runs Linux, and you're starting to see they've built images to run on it, and figured out the super secret password, which is 3 characters in a row, starting with 1. But it's got a great looking. Let me turn my lamp off here. It's got a great looking display, and there's some new firmware. Like I said, it's got some quirks, but a buddy of mine, Ken, took it on a Atlantic crossing with him from and he was in the water for 2 weeks, and he put up a 6-meter dipole on the rigging of the sailboat and was sitting there working FT8s from incredibly rare grids in the middle of the Atlantic because he went in the summertime. So it was, I think there's $600 or so. I got mine from Gigaparts, but you can order them direct from overseas. But yeah, so I just thought it was it's 160 through to 6 at 5 watts. It says 10 watts. Don't go to 10 watts. The 5 to 10 watt, jump for that 3 dB performance is not worth it because there's still heating issues with them. As I said, it's got some quirks that I don't think they fully thought out. I think it says 9 to 15 volts as an input. Don't take it that high because it wants 9. And if you put it in at 14, it still has to scrub those 4 volts somewhere if it's charging, and that heats it up. And there's a whole bunch of discussions online. But, this one sort of sits in the car in a little bag, which I got at Home Depot. And I can get everything in here. But it's a tough built bag. It was probably Home Depot. It's like this, and nothing special to protect it, and it's not a top end radio, so I don't care as much if it really got banged up. But so there's a mic and a DC power cord and a charger and those antennas I told you about. But now I got to order a loop, and I have a 705. But
you've got the link for the loop.
Yeah, so but as Thomas says, they're the same but different. You got to
Well, it's like driving a car. You drive the same car every day, and every once in a while you drive a different car, and it's kind of fun. You may not like it as much, or it may not be as fancy as the normal car, but it's fun to drive something different.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Very cool. So I have a couple quick comments. I'll start with 2 radios that I
make it noted. I did mine in 90 seconds.
Well, I won't beat that, but I applaud your attempt. So I'm going to mention 2 radios that I don't have. Therefore, I have several opinions about them. No, I okay. First radio that I don't have that may be on the horizon was actually an influence from you, Thomas. It's the Pentec TR45, not the 35. Oh, and you have one there showing on video. Yep, that's the one.
I wanted one of those. I tried to get one of those meters from him. Not a chance.
Well, so the funny thing you should say that, Mike, because when I first saw this TR45, I thought, it looks kind of like a QCX on steroids. Why would I want this thing? And then I looked at the meter and I thought, oh, that's why.
Oh, let's see the back.
It's like a ZM.
Is that a ZM2?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's got a lot of things that I like about it. I mean, I love the mechanical meter. I like the Z-Match tuner built into it. I wish it wasn't on the back, but anyway, it just seems really cool.
It's so cute.
So I asked him about the meter because I wanted to put an Arduino in front of it and have it read data from the Flex, but he wouldn't sell me a meter, and they're only custom.
Oh, I was curious about that because I couldn't imagine who would be making those meters.
The meters are commonly available. It's the front panel.
The scaling isn't on the meter. I asked him about it. He wrote me a very nice email and explained it. I'll have to find it.
Wait, the scaling is not on the meter? What do you mean?
The whole meter and the calibration of the meter and the meter's not a stock meter. It's designed for amateur use, and you can't buy them off the shelf.
Why not? I mean,
you can.
Is it something other than just the art on the panel?
Read the scales, Thomas, on the meter. Read the scales on the meter.
Yeah. So
what do the 2 scales say?
We can't read the text.
So it's a proper S meter, right?
Yes. It's signal level and RF power.
Yeah, but that's just artwork that's a silk screen on a metal sheet of metal. Is there anything different about the meter than that?
Was it 50 microamps?
I mean, yeah, it's probably just a standard 1 milliamp or 100 microamp or whatever meter mechanism, but the distinction is that metal plate with the artwork on it, right? That's the custom part.
Yeah.
So they did a lovely job of the meter because it has sort of that amber, tubey glow kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
So
it's very cute.
Anyway, so that's on my list, and
you need one.
It's ham sexy.
I do. I need one because I don't have one.
All right, what's the part number on that thing again?
It's the TR45L, and let me tell you, like so John WA3RNC, who runs Pentech, he was inundated with orders with this. I mean, this is, I think, by far probably one of the most popular radios when I've ever posted something and people kind of came back and said, I've got to have that because of the way it looks. It's very unique. But also what blew me away is the audio is fantastic. Like this like acoustic chamber that is the chassis and the enclosure works beautifully with this speaker that's this 2-inch speaker on the side or whatever it is, and it sounds great. Sounds really, really amazing with the speaker.
Does it have that smell that smells along with that odor of
1940s
of those
surplus?
cases? Right, they had a particular
the Hallicrafters odor.
Yeah.
It has an odor of burning carbon.
It has. So, the thing about it, though, is the audio reminds me of an analog radio, which I consider that's a high compliment, actually. And the little Z-Match tuner on the back works beautifully. Like if you buy this, George, just buy the tuner, buy the battery pack. The battery pack's a lot. I haven't charged this. I've used this in probably 3 or 4 activations, and I haven't charged it since. And I'll do one tomorrow probably. So that's the reason it's here. I sleep with it, actually. So
what really tickled
what's her
me?
Name?
what tickled me about that radio? Yeah, what's her name? One thing I really kind of liked about that is there's everything not cool about that radio makes it so awesome.
Cool.
Because first of all, it's got a mechanical meter, not cool. Mm-hmm. Secondly, it's really big, not cool. Third, it's got a big built-in speaker, not cool. I mean, like everything about the coolest, we just talked about the mountain topper and all that stuff. It's all of those creature comforts that none of those radios have. And so this thing is abnormally large given what it is. So I kind of appreciate where they're coming from. So I think they did a really, really bang up job on that. So anyway, I'm on the list, by the way. I in sort of a fit of desperation, of not having bought a radio for a couple of weeks. I figured I had to, Vince, I got to catch up to you. So anyway, so that's one. The other one that I don't have that I put on my list is vaguely reminiscent of some of the things you were talking about, Mark. It's, God, what is the brand? I don't even know what the brand is, but it's the VR-N7500 VHF UHF mobile FM radio. And it's kind of like what you're describing with the mic thing. So this is similar. It's headless. The radio is a box. You stick the box in your trunk, and the control head is it either is a tablet or a phone, or you can get a little microphone Bluetooth thing. So you can use that just like you're describing with the DMR radio. So, and they're like $175. They're not very expensive. Plus the plus the microphone is another like $50 or something like that if you want to go with the Bluetooth mic. So apparently the software is not for the tablet's not too bad, but if you want a stealthy FM radio, this would be pretty slick. So I think they've been around for a couple of years. I just tripped across it recently, and I thought it might be kind of fun radio to play with. So
Gigaparts has it on sale for $108 right now.
No way! Wow, that's a deal. That's like half price.
Close to it, yeah.
Wow.
And by the time you will hear this, I will have bought them all at that price. Ham Radio Workbench will be selling them for $195.
Arbitrage.
Well, I'm wondering how hard this would be to. It's got a manual. Let me go look at that. Like hook up to a computer and use as a headless remote base station or repeater or something like that.
So what's funny you should say that. When I look at these kind of radios, I know why they built it, because they built it for humans to use a phone or a tablet to control it, and I get that.
Yeah.
I wish they would go like just an inch further and put like audio in and out, COR, PTT in and out, so you can use it as an APRS thing or as a little baby repeater radio, or put a TNC in it, or put a serial port on it so you can control it, or maybe you could do it over Bluetooth for sure. Actually, the one feature that I really, really wish someone would come out with is take this exact same radio, and rather than the control channel be over Bluetooth, put it over Wi-Fi. Now, I get why they did Bluetooth, because it's cheaper and it's easier because you can carry the audio. So I get it. However, I would pay more if it had a Wi-Fi connection. Why? Because I could take this radio, stick it in the house in a rack in the basement or whatever, and walk around the house with the little handy talkie thing that is Wi-Fi'd to an access point in the house. It's kind of like when you go to Home Depot and the guys are walking around with those cordless phones. It's kind of like that. But can you imagine, like, you essentially have your handy talkie with the big 50-watt booster on the back end around your house? So I think that'd be a winner. Like I said, I get why they do Bluetooth, but Wi-Fi version, that would be a hit. Anyway, those are two things I don't have. They may be in my future to play with when I have some space to actually futz around with them.
So I'm looking at the manual for that thing right now, and the RJ45 on the front does have a serial port, ground, 8 volts, PTT, SQL, AF out, and mic. So all of the audio and PTT and COR signals are there, plus a serial port.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is the serial port? How many pins can you see if it's bidirectional?
TX and RX and ground.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's cool. So it does have kind of everything there.
Yeah, of course, it doesn't say anything about what the serial protocol is, but it gives me hope that you could. I mean, sorry, Mike, it's a serial port, but it gives me hope that you could hook that up to a Raspberry Pi or something, and ideally it would be a USB port that had audio sound interface and a serial port on it.
Yeah.
But this is okay. Maybe not a close second, but it's better than not having any of that.
Right. So that I'll kind of wrap up this section on Pick a Radio. I have a general observation, by the way. Every one of us came up with a couple of interesting radios, almost none of which really are mainstream. And the thing I find so interesting about this is there's another 100 radios you can go buy from all the big manufacturers that are like the normal radios we all think about. And we just picked a whole bunch of quirky radios that all have a weird little niche. And it's just so exciting to see all these different models from all these companies.
Yep.
I'm constantly amazed at the number of HFQRP radios. It's like, like almost every day there's another one. I forgot one. I picked up a TR4. What the heck is it? A TR4. I want to say TR4C, but it's not that.
FX4B.
Thank you, FX4C. That's what it is. Which is built like a little brick. It's a pretty decent little radio. It's sort of the more digitally version than that Pentec. The Pentec feels more analog. I mean, looks more analogy to me. So anyway, there's so many fun radios to see. Let's change shift gears here. Change topics to I don't know. What should we do? Should we do antennas or station accessories or what? What do you guys think?
Let's do antennas.
All right, antennas. Vince, go for it. What do you have on your antenna list?
The only thing I have on my antenna list is a stock item for me. And there's a company out there called RF Products, and they make this thing called the Unidapt Kit. So this thing straddles the line between tools and feed lines. And what these adapters do is they have a common adapting piece in the middle, and I can go from any to any. And it's a little pouch about yay big, and I should have gone and grabbed it from my toolkit before, but that's okay. It's a pouch about the yay big with a whole pile of male and female ends and a little barrel joiner in the middle. And these are really good for making up adapters when you need it. They also sell a Unidapt cable about 3 feet long. So now you can make up a temporary jumper cable. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these things are not designed for permanent use. They are designed for temporary use, but they are absolutely awesome to have around in any RF adapter kit. Now, I don't know about you all, but I carry a big tackle box full of adapters because that's how I roll, because I'm slightly over-prepared.
I've got a
Vince,
bunch of them
are
here
these
for
those
Vince.
RF adapters that have a common threaded thing? So you pick the two ends and they just mate together?
Yes.
So this was originally a Heathkit product.
No way.
And do you remember, so Mike, do you remember when Heath went out of Canada back in the early 80s?
Yep.
And they had on Dundas Street, sorry, I'm being local here, but on Dundas, they had this massive clear out. There was a 4x4 skid in there that was 3 feet deep of these adapters, and they were going for like $2 a piece.
I have,
and I
two
only
of
grabbed
these
one. I was crazy.
You mean the
But
I've
I
got a
whole
still
whole
have
bunch
set?
of them on the screen here. Vince,
There was-
wanna bring
You
them
brought
up?
one pallet,
I bought
right?
one set, and I should have bought like as many as I could have carried.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So you
have-
can get these from Amazon and other places. And the Amazon ones for casual use are probably going to do just fine. My brother's got a set of those, and that's what he tells me. But if you want a really good quality set, go to RF Industries and get one of their Unidapt kits.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, just
really,
like
I
these.
totally agree with you, Vince. Those are awesome. They're
I
useful
ha-
for everything.
I have a philosophical point to add to that product. And that is that if you ever deploy one of
Oops.
those adapters, you have to like put a big red flag on it or a car rim
Yeah.
or something
Yep.
to remind you to take it out of the system you put
Mhm.
it in and not permanently leave it there, because you're going to wind up
Yep.
removing these adapters from that little case, and you're not going to have that beautiful set of adapters.
I have
Absolutely.
a beautiful story on that, George, and you'll get it because I'm at the repeater site. And I can't, you've got the jar full of everything, right? And you've dumped it on and you're looking for the right adapter. And the only way I could build one was out of my kit. I had to put a big label on the kit saying it's on the UHF machine, receiver side, go back and get it, But
Well,
absolutely right.
exactly, because that's the scenario I had in my mind, Mike, which is like,
Yeah.
thank goodness I have the adapters here, but when I leave, one of them's going to stay, and now you're going to have a hole in the kit, and that would
And it
just
was
keep
like
me up.
N mail to N, B, and C, something that you don't have anyway. I have two of these kits. I found them both at flea markets, Vince, of
Yes.
different make. I didn't spend more than $40 on each one, and one's here at the house and one's at the cottage, which is a remote. And
If you see one of these at a
use 'em.
flea market, grab it.
deal it. Yeah, I use them all of them. I think there's another one about 10 feet away, just like
Yeah.
you.
It saves you from buying 25 pounds of adapters, which is the rest of what I have in my.
Yeah, that's
tool
now down to
tackle
20
box.
pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Let's see, Thomas, how about you? What do you have for antenna stuff?
Right. So for antenna stuff, I have to do my big plug for arborist throw lines. Now I know that not everyone lives in an area with trees, but these things, oh my goodness, they really, really changed my portable operating world in such a big way. I remember during the National Parks on the Air program in 2016, when I was doing a lot of field stuff, I just used monofilament and this like really large nut that was heavy, and I'd lob it up in a tree, and I could use the monofilament maybe 3 times, and then I'd have to chuck it because it would stretch and do stuff. And a couple times the nut actually would ricochet and come back near me, and I really didn't want to test my cranium, but a couple years ago, I thought, I just need to go ahead and try one of these arborist throw lines, and I bought one, and it just changed everything. Arborist throw lines are designed, for arborists to work on trees and to lob lines up in trees and manipulate them the way they need to. And they have these little bags that are made with sort of like buckshot in them, and they're heavy. They glide through the tree. I have never had one stick. I've had one time one stuck, but I was throwing it too high with too small of a weight, and I knew better. I just didn't have one
And
available.
they
at
won't
the time.
hit you in the head.
They won't hit you in the head, and if they do, it's not going to necessarily be an ER visit. You'll probably live to tell the tale, and so will your radio if you happen to throw it towards your radio. I haven't done that. It sounds like I did that. I haven't done that yet. I keep the radio in my pack for that very reason. But you can buy weights of different sizes. You'll see some people tend to go for 16-ounce weights, and these look like they're just like little small sacks, that with buckshot in them. they'll go for 16-ounce weights thinking, oh, it's heavier, it'll go through the tree better. But 16 ounces is a heavy weight to sling up into a tree. And this thing works on physics. You don't have to be, I can put one of these 55 feet into a tree very easily with little effort, because you just kind of sling them to your side and launch them up in the tree, and they work. And you get pretty accurate at it. When you first buy this, make sure your family's away from the house and nobody can see you. And you go in your front yard and you find a test tree, usually a tree that you hate, that's maybe being punished. And you start this, and after you do it a dozen times, I promise you'll like be fairly good at it. And when you go to the field, you don't have to be crazy surgically accurate when you're throwing these in a tree. You just want to get it in there to get your line to go through, to put up your end-fed half wave or whatever wire antenna you have. These cost around, so this is one made by Weaver. I really recommend this company, Weaver. They're made in Ohio. They make all their stuff in Ohio, and the bags are great. I've never had one explode on me. I've read plenty of Amazon reviews of the cheap ones that have exploded on people, because sometimes these do come down with a lot of force. This is a thicker kind of yellow poly line that is one of the most popular ones for arborists, and it works very well. And it'll last probably a couple of years before you need to replace it out. The bag looks like you would have a hard time putting it in the small bag. This is a small stuff sack that fits in my backpack. And how you put this in, and I've watched people use arborist tow lines that didn't know what they were doing, and it's like stuffing a snake in a bag. It keeps wanting to come out. And what you have to do is you wrap it in a figure 8 on your hand, and then you put in like a bunch at a time. And it will not tangle. Like, I've never had one tangle on the way out. It'll come out the way it should. I actually have, so this is, I'm holding up here for the people that are on the podcast can't see this, but this is like a little red bag with my 12-ounce weight. And this is one that I'll carry with me when I may be using a pretty tall tree. Maybe I want to put up an antenna that I really want the thing to, maybe I want it to be oriented vertically, and I want to go for 55 feet or something. And it just works really well. But the one I use a lot in the field is an even smaller bag. So this is in a Tom Bin small travel tray.
I was going to ask.
Yes. Of course I know. I've got to get the right bag. I mean, that's what it's all about. And this little travel tray costs probably, I mean, it's like $20 or $22. You don't need to use one of these, but it's ideal. And so this is like a little small bag that's no bigger than, I mean, it's just a small stuff sack, a very small stuff sack. And the line I use is made by a company called Marlowe that makes sailing lines and arborist lines in the UK. And this is a 2 millimeter line. So it's very thin, and I like it because it's very compact. I can put this in my pack, and I barely know it's in there. And I use an 8-ounce bullet weight. They call it a bullet weight, made by Weaver. And these are fantastic for this line and for most summit activations and things where you're not going for a 55-foot tree or something, where you want it to be maybe 40 feet in the air. 8-ounce weights are great, but you cannot launch them up really high into thick foliage, because they can stick when you do that, because there's just not enough weight to pull the rest of the line down. But these things are just invaluable. I mean, I use them all the time. When you use these for a while, you can deploy an antenna in just no time, absolutely no time at all. And you don't even have to get a bag for it. I'm just outfitting one right now. So this Marlowe line comes in 50-meter reels. And so I take it out and I pull out 25 meters and cut it in half. So I have 2 lines basically of 25 meters. And I found that 25 meters is a real sweet spot, because you can deploy the entire line, and you can put it all back up by wrapping it up. And you don't even have to use a bag. You can just keep it here. And I use these S hooks, which George is very familiar with Pactena. And I'll attach one of the S hooks to my bag. And I don't use an S hook on the end that I actually put the weight on. I have one on here now, but I just use a really simple loop knot that will actually come out if I have to really yank it out of a tree or something. And yeah, you can just carry this with your pack or throw it in your pack, and you've got a perfect way to launch an antenna. These will run you anywhere from buying Weaver and buying Marlowe and the good brands. You're going to pay probably about $35 to maybe $45 for a simple kit. and it's worth every penny. I have like 5 of these different kits now, maybe 6.
So I got a question for you. When you're talking about launching that,
Mhm.
are you literally holding it to your side and swinging it in a circle and then hoping it releases at the right angle? Or do
So
you have some tricky technique?
there are two there you can look online. There are a lot of videos about these and the techniques you can use. I use 2 different techniques. If I can stand back from the tree. So what I typically do with the line actually serves to pull up my antenna and hold the antenna during the activation. I know some people that actually use the line to pull up another line to then pull up the antenna, and I feel like for the field with lightweight antennas, that's just not necessary. So usually when I go to a site, I aim the throw line toward where I'm operating, so that then I can like attach the end of the line to it, and it's just in the right orientation. And what I'll do is I sling it off to the side most of the time. So I just kind of sling it in like this, like circular motion off to the side, and you just look at it, and you start to learn when to release it, and that gives you the most momentum and kind of the best angle. However, if you are under a really deep, or I should say like a thick canopy, and you need to shoot it almost straight up, then I use like this granny shot method, where you kind of like use this sort of pendulum action using both hands, and you go, and it's like doing a granny shot with a basketball. You kind of go between your legs and up, and that'll shoot it straight up really, really well. And there's a really good technique you can look on YouTube for doing that. So I use that when I'm underneath the canopy and I can't get back away from the tree in order to get my angle.
Yeah, I saw a video where someone was doing that granny shot you did. I never saw that before, and I'd never had a lot of luck winging the weight up in the tree. Maybe I need a lot more practice, but it was kind of like I got a lot of momentum and it went in the wrong angle. Or I mean, you probably need to practice a little bit to get your
At your new
placement
place,
down.
go in the backyard and find the tree that you don't like and that you
Oh.
want to show who's boss. And
Gotcha.
make sure that your wife is in another state so she's not videotaping you or something and laughing. But honestly, it takes no time. Earlier this year, I needed to. I had to take down a tree in our yard, which meant that I had to lower a big, really huge sky loop antenna that was really difficult to put up. Had to lower it down, and one of my lines broke, and I needed to put it back up in there. And throw lines, doing them by hand, you can't get crazy serious height. But I did that for a little while, and it took me maybe a dozen tries, and I got it where I wanted. By the end of that, I was getting fairly accurate, So yeah.
So
So
go ahead,
hold
Rod.
on. I have to jump in here, guys, because Thomas is one of these guys that goes out into nature with a light backpack, really in tune with nature. He's got his little throw bag and all this other stuff. And while I respect that, Thomas, you're doing it wrong. If you're going to arm up with real stuff from real arborists, you want to go another aisle over, because in that other aisle is the biggest slingshot you've ever seen in your life. It's called a big shot.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Vince, if you happen to look in show notes, I've got a graphic there for you if you can throw it up. But a big shot actually combines 2 arborist posts. Just scroll down there and get to where the 2 posts are as well. So there's a little product that you can buy as a bundle where you've got these 2 posts that are used and become literally an 8-foot pole. And then you attach, just for scale, this gigantic slingshot. And then you put that same weaver weight into the bottom of this, and like Conan the Barbarian, you pull it back as if you're storming a castle somewhere. And this will top a tree that is literally 300 meters tall.
Mm-hmm.
I see no way this is going to end poorly.
No.
Or without a trip to the ER.
And naturally, as you might have guessed by now, I have one of these.
Oh, excellent.
It is referred to in our club as a crew-served weapon because it requires multiple people to run and a block and tackle, because we're hams, not bodybuilders. So yeah, you have to kind of crank this thing back. It's an archer's trigger that releases it. And man, you can place this thing anywhere. It is so cool, but it is absolutely terrifying to use.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure the state parks that like me now will love me
Oh,
when I bring them
yeah.
out there.
Actually, the Bronte Creek Provincial Park guys gathered in a circle to watch us do this.
That's really cool.
They
Okay.
just didn't want trees to be damaged.
Now,
Yes,
in
we were
the spirit
in tune
of
with nature.
dangerous aerial launch vehicles, I have to show you my version of the way to loft something up over the big tree, and that is,
I'm getting
let's
it.
see,
I
let's
got
see,
it
how
coming.
I use
Oh,
a drone or an air.
do you have the link there, Vince?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I built
Now-
one of those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So here's the deal. A lot of people build spud guns, but why build one when you could buy one? So this guy, antennalaunchers.com, builds spud guns, and they look just like what you would build if you had the time to do it and were able to do it right the first time. So the thing that I love about this is that it's very, very compact.
Yes.
And the thing that pays out the line is this bail that sits around the nose, the nozzle end of the launcher. So a lot of spud guns, you see people taking like fishing reels and attaching them to the thing, expecting that to pay out the line. And in my experience, any kind of cheap reel you stick on a spud gun is just going to get tangled up.
Mine works flawlessly with the reel on the back, but mine gun's longer, and I have an eye on the end, about 20 inches
Yeah.
away. Pays out well over 200 feet.
I've never had it work. I tried building a couple, and maybe I just use really cheap reels, and they just there's too much like tension on it and drag. And anyway, this thing is flawless. And anyway, it's beautiful, works great. Even such a small cylinder has enough compressed air to shoot a weighted tennis ball way over any trees you're going to want to hoist a line over.
So that's pretty big, right? That's about,
It's not that big.
well, it's about this big, right? It's not back enough.
It says it is 16 inches
Yeah.
by 2.5 inch, and that's the barrel. So this
that's one of
whole
those
thing
that-
overall is about 18 inches long.
Right. That's one of those big blue Tupperware, purple
Yep.
Tupperware
Right.
containers that we store everything in.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it's not like super small, but it as spud guns go, it's pretty compact. And
Nice.
anyway, the thing works great. And the absolute best part about it is that when you pull the trigger, it is the most satisfying sound.
It is, isn't it?
Exactly.
Sounds like a mortar going on.
It's
No,
it's
it's
a beautiful thunk.
It's
Oh, it's lovely. Anyway,
and then you
and-
hear that.
thunk. And so, and part of the thing is they also have weighted tennis balls with a nice little wire thing that comes with. Anyway, it's a beautiful
much is
system. Oh gosh, I don't know. I bought it ages ago.
Hang on, I'm
I
looking.
don't know.
And-
The web page is dated 2005.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't see a price.
So I think that they're a couple $100. I mean, it wasn't like crazy expensive. And by the way, when you think about buying one is roughly the middle of May, because you're thinking field day is coming. I better order my spud gun. And then by the middle of May, it's too late. So if you ever want to buy one of these, you got to buy them like now before
Online
everybody
order
wakes up to the
page.
fact that they need one. So Thomas, your approach is elegant, and Rod's approach is brute force, and I don't know
Medieval
what you
almost.
call this one, but this is the lazy man's version. Anyway,
Well,
works great.
So, Mike, what have you got to add for antennas? Let me add this into here.
Well, I mentioned this earlier. So this is when my dad was, when I was waiting around the nursing home, and so I'd be out in the parking lot taking a break, and I had pulled the Zygu out, which has an RTTY decoder on, and there was an RTTY contest going on, and I just wanted a distraction, so I had this kit that does, it apparently will load. Careful wording, load 80 through 6.
Yes.
And so I put it on 20, and because I don't know how well it radiates 80 through 6, and there's a difference, but you get the idea. And so $122, you had all bands and a 48-inch whip, and it's just for me, if I was out canoeing or something,
It's perfect.
it's perfect. And
I had one of these. MFJ markets these. They call them the MFJ 1899 Tango, just like this one. except with 3 different letters. And they're also they're manufactured slightly differently by Comet, called the HFJ 350M. And I have one of those. And the big difference is the connector. At the bottom is a UHF connector instead of a BNC connector. These are wonderful multi-band antennas. They're great loading coils. Can you make contacts on them? Yes, you can. What's the best antenna? The one you've got.
One you got.
Yeah, you bet.
They were a bit of a trick to load, but I mean to find, where it was resonant. Because I'm not a tuner guy, even though the Zygo's got a tuner in it. I never use a tuner.
Well, especially
I want
if
the antenna to do what it's supposed to.
Are you mounting the antenna right on the BNC of the radio?
Of course.
Yeah, so your body is going to be detuning the antenna and anything that's around it, and so the tuning is going to be finicky. So as long as there's a tuner, you're fine.
Yeah, and I think those usually have to have a nice counterpoise that's cut to the right length, right?
Yep.
Any counterpoise is better than nothing, but yes.
Yeah.
So Thomas, when you're using the AX1, do you put a counterpoise wire on the radio?
Every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does make
in
a
fact,
big difference, doesn't it?
Oh, a huge difference. With the AX1. I mean, I think the one for 20 meters is only 11 or 13 feet long, and then I think a 31-foot long one for 40 meters. It's surprising. I don't want to divert too long here because I know we got some other topics to cover, but those compromised antennas, depending on where you live, you can really do well with them when you're the DX and you're on a summit or in a park or on an island or someplace doing an on-the-air event. Because I've always, the AX1 has always exceeded expectations for me, and it's very similar to this antenna you were showing. And I think a lot of it's because within the footprint of that antenna, there are a lot of ham radio operators. So in Quebec, I was using them in urban parks, and I've used them in insane. I was under a picnic shelter in a deep valley in Western North Carolina with 5 watts with my KX1 in the picnic shelter, and made contact with a guy in Hungary who's a county hunter. And he actually had to ask me the county. I had to send him the county. He had to go back and confirm. And, and we actually had a conversation with 5 watts. It was CW, with those things. So they can work. And they're fun. And they're like you said, I mean, you throw them in your car and you've got it. And, hey, you can play radio anytime.
So do we have any other antenna ideas before we wrap this segment? All right. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll go into the third half and talk about the last couple of categories before we wrap up the shopping show. And with that, we'll be right back. So I think what we're going to do in the final segment here is rather than go through these sections, let's just do one round on anything from any section you want to talk about that you haven't touched on yet.
Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. And that way we can wrap before you guys turn into a pumpkin. I don't want to make it too late for you guys.
Before we continue on, George, I want to curse you because I just bought one of those N7500s.
Oh, did you? Oh, cool.
At $100,
I have to.
Yeah, at $108, I couldn't.
What was
not
the N7500? The FM rig?
Yeah, the headless FM rig.
And then you'll have a new interface written for it by the end of next week.
You just need a Wireshark
don't laugh
to monitor
too much
the serial
because
port.
I'm actually considering the reason I bought it is I'm looking at it as a because it's got a serial port on it. If I can figure out that serial protocol, write a microcontroller that does all of the SOAR stuff.
Yep, exactly. I was thinking exactly that.
I think you dump it right into Node-RED and parse the crap out of it.
Yep.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I can. Yes, there's a lot of parsing and dumping and reverse engineering might have to happen, but basically, this is a headless, high-powered radio. It is very clear in the documentation that it does not do crossband, so it won't do full duplex itself. But for 2 of them, that's not a. Anyway, yes, yeah. I will be playing with this thing a little.
And
bit.
It's a work purchase for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
While I was in there, I was looking around at Gigaparts, and they also have customizable engraved tumblers like these. And so I drew up my ASCII art fish on some. I have a dark navy blue halibut ASCII art tumbler on its way to me as well, because it was $17.
So looking at this thing on Gigaparts, it's really funny. It's 107.97 or used in open box from 169.
I saw that.
You can email them and
Tough
ask them about
choice.
that. They are they have an amazing marketing program. I
Well,
mean,
no,
they
this
have a
one's
whole
it's
team
on
of
sale
people.
right now. Is why it's so cheap. It's 40% off right now.
They have an amazing marketing team at Gigaparts.
Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a staff of people that deal with all their marketing and everything. It's a big deal.
Huh.
So,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we're
they've-
going to come in the interest of time. We're going to come back in, and who wants to go first in the rotation?
I'll go.
Okay.
Let me get my stuff though.
I was those Pentec, the TR45s. I didn't realize how bloody expensive those things are.
Oh,
It's
my-
nearly
yeah,
$1,000.
No.
No.
No, it's
The
about
TR45 or the 35?
The 45.
It's about 700 with everything.
Yeah. It's about 700 when you add everything together. He'll eventually have a kit version that's less expensive, but
Yeah.
he's kind
Well,
of a
what's the fun
one-man
in
show. Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, I was a little bit shocked at how expensive that was. But then again, I'm sure people will be saying the same thing about
That
halibut.
Mark that meter. It's that meter.
It's that meter. Yeah, it is.
It is also. I
It's
will say one more thing about that radio is it is an all-in-one. Like you take, I literally have this radio in a little box. I take it out with 2 pieces of wire
Yeah.
and a key, and you're done. Like you
Yeah.
don't need anything else except something to log with. So
Okay, you can hide that first, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
All right, we're going to come back in 5 if you're ready.
I'm ready.
All
Get
right.
it.
All righty, back in 5, 4, 3. So as we get into the third part of the show and talk about the last segment of random, what do we call it? The dealer's choice
Dealer's
on,
choice.
That's
on
what
your
I said,
topic.
yeah.
So Mike, why don't we start with you? What other goodies do you want to talk about in the shopping show here?
So, hands up if you've been waiting for the price of Raspberry Pis to come down.
I've been
Okay.
waiting for them to show up at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are they? There's some crazy value number, right? And so I was poking around on Amazon. I was probably in a work meeting and not paying attention.
Huh.
And then I
I'm sorry. What did you just
started
say?
seeing these little microcomputers, mini computers, right? So you can bring the page up, Vince. So this is an N5100 desktop, comes with a Windows 11 Pro, which I don't care about the operating system. It's got an M2 drive in it for $239 Canadian. Now so I'm going to load Ubuntu on it and then make my Node Red server and other stuff at my remote. And I mean, it's complete. It's got a bunch of USB ports, 2 4K HDMI ports, a LAN, everything you need, power supply. That's $239 Canadian. What's that, Vince? 150 US? little bit more.
About 170 US.
US. And then as I read through the reviews on them, the guy says, "Yep, no more waiting for pies. This is what I'm going to use." And and all cased and ready to go. Got mounting screws here, I guess, if you want to spin. They're probably like M3s or something, but
For what everybody else is, a lot of people are probably screaming. It's a 4-core CPU up to 2.8 gigahertz with 8 gigs of RAM. So not only is it available, but it's going to be way more powerful than a Pi.
Wi-Fi and 1 gig, 1 gig LAN.
Probably runs on 12 volts.
I can get to that. Like, I haven't even
There's
opened the box.
a lot
Got
of
here
the,
just as we started recording.
A lot of the NUC form factor computers run at 12 volts.
And that 12 volts is probably pretty flexible because nothing inside there actually runs on 12 volts. So everything's going to be switching it down to some other voltage, which means that your input voltage can be pretty wide range. So you could almost certainly run that off of, the 14.6 or 13.8
12 volts
plus or minus.
at 12 volts at 3 amps. Came with a little mounting bracket, which is so you can
very nice
and pretty complete.
We're seeing a lot of this stuff creep up out of the digital signage market.
Yes.
Where people are running all sorts of crazy menu stuff, but super cheap. And keep your eyes open for the used version of these as well, because as people rotate through their digital signage, these things come up. There's a little bit of kind of fun work to get them running again, but it's well worth it.
You know what those are also useful for? We use those little Nuck-sized computers in the radio trailer because they're so small. You can just put the little bracket on the wall and just mount them right there behind the monitor. You know, they don't take up any space. Or you can always, since most of them are Visa mounts, you can mount them right to the back of your monitor if you have Visa mount holes.
Yep.
And then
But that means that you can't mount your monitor using those VESA mount holes.
No, you bolt through it. So the wall
computer
mount
has all the way through for the screws.
Yep.
This one you could bolt through because it was an ear.
Huh.
So this will run Smart SDR, by the way. There's enough horsepower for in our world, but I wouldn't do a whole lot of digital because that's a really grindy way. But maybe you can take two of them and have one computer for at least in the Flex world, for your radio control, and another computer running WSJT.
That thing should have plenty of horsepower to do Smart SDR.
One stream. Well, maybe I'll try it before I nuke it. I like the fact it had an M2 drive in it. That was a game changer.
Yeah. Well, M2 is just a form factor. Is it SSD or is it NVMe? Yeah. So
M2, in either case, it's probably
faster
more
though. Generally, isn't it?
It's probably more
only if it's an NVMe. If it's still SSD, then it's the same as an SSD drive.
But if you're comparing it to the Pi, by the way, you're comparing.
It's going to be faster than the Pi.
Either one, right? They're going to be better.
Yes, very. That it's a box. I don't know what that means.
What's the brand?
It's a G3 mini PC by somebody.
Yeah. But in any case, it's going to be a really nice computer.
Big key.
And not much more than what you're actually paying for Pis these days.
And it weighs about the same as a Pi in a case.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway,
all right.
That's what I got.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go ahead and go next. I'm going to cheat because I've got two things I want to talk about. The first one, I know I'm late to the game, but holy crap, I have bought my first pair of real wire strippers. Like literally for decades, I have been using a Leatherman as my wire stripper and dealing with little trimmed and clipped wires and everything else. And while I was at PacificCon, PowerWorks was there and they had one of those little magic, you just kind of like put the wire in the place and you clamp it down and it just like goes in, strips the insulation and pulls it off all in one swell foop. The Rod is showing up the squirt that my brother-in-law bought him.
Banging his head on his desk for you.
Yeah. But very similar to that. That's not the exact one that I have. The one that I have is a PowerWorks. But those, I thought that they were an unnecessary extravagance until I've used one, and holy crap, I'm not going back. Like I've used a Metcal for decades. Why did I not think that this was worth spending money on? I don't know. But so good wire strippers is one thing. The other one I wanted to point it out.
Hold on. I lost a pair of my favorite wire strippers, and it was painful.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one reason to have really good wire strippers is if you ever use Teflon wire. They're just impossible to strip with like diagonals or any other nonsense. You really need wire strippers for Teflon wire.
So that's exactly the use case that got me to do this. Did we lose Thomas?
Yes, we did. He'll be back.
Okay. Because I literally just hit a key combination on a different window when he went away. And I'm like, oh my God, did I kill him?
You killed Thomas.
But I am assembling a lightsaber, actually 2 lightsabers for my wife. Yes, you heard that right. And
why does that sound odd to me? I mean, that
doesn't sound weird at all. And the recommended wire is Teflon, and I was trying to strip it with my Leatherman. I'm like, this is crap. And when I was at PacificCon, I saw these. They were kind of spendy, but I did it. And stripping the Teflon wire with that is just an absolutely different experience.
Yeah. By the way, Teflon wire is also, speaking of cool things, as just general hookup wire goes, once you get sick and tired of melting that really cheap, crappy vinyl insulated wire and you start using Teflon wire, it's really good.
Yeah.
Mike, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Rod?
Okay, I'm gonna jump in with the stocking stuffer. Okay, so this puppy is, if I can block my eyes and hope that this thing goes in focus.
It's a Klein.
It's made by Klein. What a
It's one of my
surprise!
And
favorites.
it is a KT 250. And okay, so you've seen this form factor before. This is for testing GFCIs and to make sure down here you can see the polarity, the green light and the red light, because sometimes we don't want to have to use our brain on this. But what gets super cool with this is it's also got, if I can turn it on, it's got a little meter in here, a little voltmeter in. So you know if something is going wrong out in the field with your generator. You also know that we keep running into with somebody, Bob brings his long extension cord and he's got polarity reversed in it, and it starts creating all sorts of issues from the Jennies out. So yeah,
That's very cool.
and by the way, that's $31 Canadian, which makes it like what,
Ooh, not bad.
$5.38 US.
If you spend 64, you get it with the circuit breaker finder thinger.
And oh, by the way,
Going a kilowatt.
it goes in the same
Mhm.
kit as the kilowatt, which is has been around forever by P3. And this one will give you your amps, your, just about everything you want, even a historical mode in it. So well worth having one of these in your kit as well. I like them both, but I really, really like this new Klein, because Klein is making much better multimeters these days. I'm like a Fluke guy through and through, but I'm seeing really, really good quality out of these guys. So, and for $30, what do you want?
And Klein stuff is available at most big box like Home
Absolutely.
Depot places, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't go, I know I talk about German screwdrivers, but you cannot go wrong with just about anything made by Klein.
I've had a set of screwdrivers since I began in my trade. So these screwdrivers are pushing 35 years old, 40 years old, and they're original Kleins. And yes, I've opened paint cans with them and they still drive a screw.
All right, very good. Anybody else have a last item they want to talk about?
Oh
Thomas?
yeah. Oh yeah. I've got two. Surprise. So actually, one of them is waterproof cases. And I'm a really big fan of Pelican cases. Like I think I showed you with my KX1. I don't have everything in here right now, but this is the Pelican 1060, which is the right size for a lot of really small field portable radios. And you can buy these for under $30. They're made in the US. They're really well done. They are completely waterproof, and they're amazing. What I really like about it, when I do a soda activation or something, I met a soda activator earlier this year in the winter on a summit by chance, and he's one of the really, really avid soda activators in the area. And he always carries his radio in one of these Pelican 1060s because he said, no matter what happens, if I drop my pack or if I get wet or whatever, I know the radio is fine. And so these are great. There are other companies that make these too. And I recently, so first of all, there's the Nano cases, and Vince, I don't know if I can forgive him quite yet, but he actually posted something about a Black Friday sale with Nanook.
Yeah, George is originally responsible. I just rebroadcasted it.
And they're made in Canada. They're made in Quebec, I believe. And yeah, I have yet to get one. Ooh, and Rod is showing a Pelican, these new Pelican cases that has some organization inside of it.
The R40 Rock case.
Those are really, really cool. I've been eyeing those when I go on REI. Yeah, they're very nice. And so similar to that actually is this one, and it's called an Evergreen 56, which is basically the same size as the Pelican 1060. And it actually has, this is a US company. I wasn't familiar with them. This one I'm holding up is completely clear. It's like a polycarbonate clear, look. So you can see everything inside of it.
Oh, and it comes with a Pactena.
It comes with a Pactena. Can you believe
nice
that?
bundle.
That's a new version. I haven't seen that.
It's a Pactena one. And the cool thing about it is like the one that Rod was showing, it has some internal organization with this like little web at the top that you can clip to the lid. And so I'm holding the Pactena in here right now. And inside of it, I've got my QCX Mini. I have this Talent Cell, which actually is a really good stocking stuffer, by the way. It's a Talent Cell, like USB battery bank that's a little over $20 you can buy on Amazon, but it outputs 12 volts. And so you have a little 12-volt out, and the connectors that come with it actually fit like the QCX Mini, the Elecraft K, all the Elecraft portable radios, and all of the Pentec TR35 and 40, all those. It fits all of those. And but it all fits in here. It comes with this nice kind of rubbery base, so everything fits in here really nicely, doesn't move around inside the case. And the case even has a locking mechanism. So when you close it, and you probably heard me just slap it there, has like a round lock on the front that you turn, and then you can't accidentally open it. And it actually also comes with a key, like this little key thing that turns an interior, like an embedded little round turnkey thing here. And that even makes it so that you can't accidentally open this up at all. It kind of locks in that little dials, but I don't even think that's necessary. But really cool. And these are just like, they're under $30. I mean, you can put all kinds of stuff in there. All kinds of stuff. Pack tennis, whatever you have.
Darn it.
What else is there?
Now I've got Talent Cell up on a tab in Amazon because they have
You can
like
power your
12
KX3. You can power your
I
KX3 with
know.
that thing. Mm-hmm. Oh,
I
yeah.
This
know.
show is so expensive.
Yeah. It's the nickel and diming stuff, isn't it? Like, especially this Talent Cell thing. Now, this is something you really, really need, and that is a ZM2
Got one.
manual antenna tuner. If you don't have one, go out immediately and get one. Buy the kit. They're a really nice kit build, or they make them pre-assembled. They have a few different versions with different connectors and stuff. This is just such an amazing ATU, and it requires no battery, no nothing. It has a really cool tuning mechanism with this LED, has an LED on the front that when you're in the tune mode, you can tell if you've got the SWR down. It protects the radio at the same time. And it's lightweight. It's a little bulky for if someone that really wants to go super lightweight in their pack, but it's still very small.
I love the big knobs on it. And by the way,
Yep.
if you tune whatever you build for an antenna and you use ladder line, that
Yes.
thing sings.
It does. It does. It has binding posts for ladder line, and it also has BNCs, or I think you can get SO239s on it too. I think you can configure it that way. But also, if you're just doing receiving, if you just want to have a receiver, internal ATUs are not that great for changing the LNC and everything like that from menus to really get a good match. This works beautifully with a receiver. So you can take like any kind of antenna, hook it up to your receiver, and just tinker around with it, and you'll get a really nice match. You don't have to inject any RF to make anything work. It works really, really well. A lot of SWLs, like shortwave radio listeners, like to use these for their external tuners or for their like external antennas. So yeah, get one. And they're like, I think like $80 or something.
$80, yeah.
I mean,
the big knobs are there to make it easy to tune because you can
Yes.
sort of micro tune it. If you put little knobs on it, it'll drive you nuts.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, it's
I built one of those EM2s. God, it must have been 10 years ago, and
Mhm.
I was blown away by it because
Mhm.
the little tuning indicator was absolutely brilliant. So
Yep.
the tuning indicator is the essence of simplicity. It's an LED and a resistor and a diode, and it samples the RF, rectifies the RF, and when it's out of tune, the LED illuminates. And when you adjust the capacitors for the proper tuning, I mean, you could hear in the receiver where it peaks, but if you transmit, then adjust the capacitors, you tune for when the LED goes off.
Mhm.
And when it goes off, you're tuned and you flip the little toggle switch back to operate and you're on the air. So
Yep.
you don't need any big fancy kind of, microprocessor, and you don't need like some other, fancy kind of metering. You just look at the LED. I mean, and when you're out in the field, for me, when I'm operating in the field, the simpler the better, because I'm
Yes.
so distracted by everything that's going on.
Yes.
The more complicated the radio is, the more irritating it is, honestly. And so to me, like that tuner is perfect for field operating because
and you're
it
not
takes
going
no
to break
power.
it.
Exactly.
That's right.
You're not going to break it. And if you built it, you can fix it if you did break it.
That's right.
So it's a real winner. By the way, back to that Pentec radio. So they have a Z match in there. Is it this? Do you think it's the same? Like, not the exact components necessarily, but is it similar
It's very
matching
similar
unit?
in how it operates. You don't have you can't add any 250 or 500 puff to it or anything like that to widen the range. I think this radio I have, by the way, Mike, you were asking about if I've named it yet. I haven't named it yet because I don't technically own this yet. This is a prototype, an early prototype that I've been working with before it was released. And I've got to beg him to buy this from him some way.
Please let me send you money.
I know. Either that, or I'm just going to go missing because I like it. But the ZM2, it's very similar and it works really well. I think he could have made it more complicated, and he made a choice to keep it simple, just really simple. And so there, you could probably hook up something that maybe you wouldn't get a match on, but so far it's gotten a match on everything that I've put on there, at least a very reasonable match. And the TR45L also has one of those little red LED indicators for SWR.
Oh, okay.
So you can tell where it is. But with the ZM2, the really cool thing about it, if you have a mountain topper, because one of the things about the earlier, before the 4B mountain topper portable QRP radio, they do not like a high SWR, and they have no SWR meter. And especially the 3B, if you're pushing anything over 12 volts, then you really need to have a really good match with that. The great thing about having the ZM2 is it'll tell you really quickly if you're tuning up something, or if you're uncertain, you can always put this in line and just make sure that you've got a really good match, an impedance match for your radio without harming the radio in the process of tuning. So I do love it. I love it.
Okay. Any other suggestions?
All right, dealer's choice. So I am the fourth person to go. That means I have to talk about 4 items. So I'm going to do that very quickly.
I had 2 items and I got cut off before I got to get to my second one.
Mark, please proceed with item number 2, and then I'll take it back from you.
I don't want to now. No, I'm kidding. Several years ago, I talked about a charging system, a battery charging system that I put in my car that would draw small amounts of current from the car, no matter what the voltage was, and then buck boost it up to the correct voltage and current limit and do all that fun stuff so that I could have a battery in my car to run the radios off of, have that battery continuously charge from the car whenever the car is running, but not try to pull 10 amps or 15 amps from the car whenever I'm transmitting. And so it's just a buck boost DC to DC converter. And I made it into this box with meters and all kinds of complexity and everything. And I just found out that PowerWorks now sells that unit in a single thing. Variable voltage in one side, current limited, battery charging out the other side. And it's in a nice, epoxied heat sink kind of unit. We got the link in the show notes, but it's the DC to DC charger LiFePO 4 8 amp adjustable, and you can adjust it for a 2 amp, 4 amp, or 8 amp charging rate. And so I picked one of those up while I was at PacificCon as well. So if anybody was interested in my car charging solution to be able to run all your radios off of a high power battery without blowing fuses in your car, I no longer recommend people make their own. I instead recommend they buy this and just use it.
Can you tell me what that's called again, please? Because darn it, I'm on the PowerWorks website.
Yeah.
This is solving a problem for me.
It's the DC-DC-8A.
DC-DC-8A. Thank you.
You bet. Incidentally,
It's on sale.
BioEnno has a similar thing, and I bought one, but it was like $120. And you open it up, and it's a plastic box with a boost converter in it. So
it has to be buck and boost.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm never generating more than 14.6 volts on anything, so I think it's always in boost mode.
No, because if your battery is discharged to the point where it's below your car's voltage, you need to be able to buck it down. Otherwise, you're going to be putting too much current into your battery.
Well, but the BMS is going to handle that on the inside of the battery.
Yeah, but you might be drawing more power from your car than it can handle.
Oh, I see. Oh,
I've blown fuses in my cigarette lighter adapter because of that.
Gotcha.
That's really cool. That is really cool.
So you really want to buck and boost in a single unit, and you want it to be current limited.
Yeah, this looks really useful. So this would be great if you have like a little bioenno battery that you're taking to your field operation, and you want to make sure that it's topped off on the drive out.
Mhm.
This would be the perfect companion to leave in your car.
I love this actually. This is going to be like my third purchase from this.
Yeah. I used it when I
Yeah.
was doing my cross country drive several years ago, and I had a 20 amp hour bioenno in the trunk with all the radios hooked up to it, and then I plugged something into the cigarette lighter adapter, and I just had it pulling 2 amps or 3 amps or whatever it was from the cigarette lighter adapter all the time, and that would just continuously charge the battery, and then whenever it would transmit, it would suck down 10, 15, 20 amps, whatever it was, but the draw from the car was always constant.
Oh, this is really useful, Mark. I never saw this.
Yeah.
And
Like,
it's got little flange mounts too. So if you want to
Yep.
bolt it to the side of something, you could just bolt it to the side of your trunk
Something.
or
whatever.
something.
Your
Thank
radio
you,
mount,
Vince.
whatever it is.
I knew
you
there's
got
a word
everything
for
about.
that.
Well, while we are on the topic of PowerWorks,
Yeah.
I'm going
Can
to
I-
talk, Mike.
I was going to break in for a quick rewind since Mark did, but I actually popped the covers off the G3, and there's room
Computer.
for a regular SSD drive as well.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Okay.
Huh.
Awesome.
Anyway, thought that was pretty cool.
And while we're on the topic of PowerWorks, almost, I'm going to talk about my very favorite power supply, the PowerWorks SS-30. The
Yep.
SS30 is Ellicraft's choice, and that's not why I like it. I've had them for years, and I have 2 of them, and I have them in my Go boxes. These are my redundant power supplies, right? Because I carry 2 of them, because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. The really cool part about them is they are 6 by 5 by 2.5 inches. They are quiet on HF. They are quiet on the bench. They are wonderful little power supplies, and you can get them either in a fixed voltage or a variable voltage version. So,
I second that.
that's one of my
Yep,
favorites.
I third it.
You know what
and I've
also
got
is
good Astron supplies and others around too, but this one, because of its size, it's
I don't know if
Mine
they-
has been on every day for 3 years, and it powers this entire station.
I'm not sure if it comes with it, but there's also little L brackets you can get for those things if you want to
Yep.
mount it in your Go box.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're they're about $8 extra, and you know me, I don't like to drill holes in Pelican cases, so I use double-sided tape and Velcro.
You just take the lid off.
Yes, I don't like to drill holes in Pelican cases, and I'm about to break that rule, but we're really running out of time, so I'm going to keep going here really quickly.
Go for it. You got 3 more to go, Vince.
I got
Snap
3
it up.
more to go. DX Engineering Coax Prep Tools. This is a ringing endorsement for an amazingly well-built set of tools. Ladies and gentlemen, I make enough cables that using a Leatherman or a craft knife was always causing my inner potty mouth to make an escape. And that became embarrassing when friends would come over and I'm trying to make a cable for them. And I'm trying to, find a Band-Aid because I missed. So I made the investment into these tools and I haven't looked back. You buy them based on the size of cable you're going to use, so RG8X, LMR400, whatever, and you buy them. You can get the stripping tool based on the type of connector you're going to apply. I will note that there is a different tool for a solder-on connector versus a crimp-on connector. So go look at their website and decide what cables you make. Because I make them all, I tend to have about 6 or 7 pieces. They make good tools, and they sell them as a kit too in a little box if that's your jam.
Yeah.
So
These are really awesome and kind of bloody expensive, and I have been drooling over them for many years, but I've started buying cables instead of making cables these days, but that's probably going to be changing when I set up my new shop. So I may go get the LMR 400 tool.
Yeah, in a similar vein, I have the Times Microwave LMR 400 stripping tool, and it works as well as the DX Engineering tool.
While you're on the DX Engineering, I want to throw in a big endorsement for their PL259 connectors, because for some reason, their PL259 connectors screw on to an SO239 without complaining. For some reason, there are some PL259s that as you screw them on, they kind of bind.
Yep.
And it's almost like they're not quite the right size. but the DX Engineering ones that I thought looked kind of flimsy because they're kind of like an aluminum thinner metal, but they work really well. So I've been very pleased with those, and I think you can get those in a crimp version with the dies and everything from them as well.
I believe you can. I have a secret theory about that. Can I share my conspiracy theory? Thank you.
Please do.
So,
not that I could stop you.
You're not about to. A friend of mine who's a machinist by trade tells me that there is a difference in the thread pitch, the thread depth and shape for an Asian created PL259 versus a North American created 259. And that's why we see some binding. So I don't have anything to back that up other than what my dear friend Jerry V6AB tells me. And you'll know Jerry because his vehicle's usually on the cover of QST magazine. He's an amazing builder. And this is what I recall him saying to me. So if I'm wrong and I've remembered it wrong, well then bad on me. So I'm at 2. I'm going to go really quickly with the next 2. Stocking stuffer. Uni-T meter, UNI-T, makes a decent, inexpensive line of meters. The one that I've purchased this year at the encouragement of somebody else is a clamp-on style. I was trying to find a vampire current that was getting drawn down in my vehicle. I was losing, I had a 3 amp battery charger on and it couldn't keep up. I had 2.7 amperes of something pulling current in my truck while it was parked and shut off. I'm down to 600 milliamperes. Still too much for my liking, but as long as I'm driving my vehicle every few days. For those of us who work from home, this is a problem. If you leave your vehicle parked for too long, the battery runs down. Anyway, Uni-T brand meters. I'll stop there because it fits in a stocking. That's why I've mentioned it. And lastly, I'm really still in love with my Panasonic Toughbook CF53. CF53, it's a Mark II in this case. It's a 4-core i5. It's supported by Windows 7 and Windows 8. I'm a Windows 7 guy. You've all heard the story before. I won't bore you to tears with that now, mostly because we don't have time and because I'll bore anybody to tears with the story that wants to hear it. Anyway, CF53 Mark II or better because it has really good rugged durability and a genuine Mike Hates It DB9 serial port. That's what I've got. So I don't know who is after me.
Hey, Vince, I hear that DB9 is going to be replacing the Ethernet RJ45 connector. Is that? Have you heard that rumor?
Yeah. I've heard that it's a DE9, I guess, if I'm being specific.
I'm glad I'm not the only pedant about that. Thank you.
And it's an 8P8C if we're talking about connectors, but if we're talking RS-232 replacing Ethernet, yeah, I don't think so. Something about when the Leafs win the Stanley Cup or when hell freezes over.
Ah, yes. Okay, good. All very good tips. Anybody else?
Can I add one more that I think is really important, and it'll be an easy one? The ARRL has released their 100th anniversary edition of the handbook.
Yes.
And I really feel like everyone should have a print copy of the handbook in their shack, and I'm definitely going to get this 100th anniversary.
Okay, so I just got the same flyer in the mail you did.
6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
We got 9. And then we got antenna books.
I got 2, one from the year I was born and one from recent.
I've got several of them, but I was looking at that. I was looking at the
right.
No, they actually are adding stuff on this one. I saw the list and I'm like, oh, that looks potentially interesting. Circuit simulation, that's what it was. They have a section on circuit simulation on this one, which I thought would be interesting. So, question. I need your opinion. 6-volume paperback or 1-volume hardback?
1-volume hardback.
Hardback.
So why do you say 1-volume hardback?
Because when you pick up volume 4 and you leave it someplace and you can't find it, your potty mouth will make an appearance and it won't impress people.
So I'll be the dissenting opinion on this. When you're trying to get your kid to actually read a section of this because it's got to do with their science class, you will not get them to pick up the gigantic book that looks like something that only old guys read.
You need the
Get them-
PDF copy.
Yeah,
They,
well,
both
that
of
is
them
the,
come with PDF. Yeah.
the PDF is wonderful.
I find it interesting that it's $70 for the PDF or $70 for the softback copy plus the PDF or $80 for the hardback copy plus the PDF. So if you're going to buy the PDF, you
may
can
as well-
get the paperback for $0 additional dollars.
Yep.
Or get the hardback for another $10.
Now, there may be an exception condition here in that the 100th anniversary edition is going to look much better in the single edition. It's going to look like something that,
Yeah.
back in the
It has
day, we
presence.
had this.
Yeah. It has presence.
Presents, yes. Very good. Well played, sir. Deep cut.
Yeah. Bill Mara is twitching right now.
Yep.
Well, George, take us home.
Okay, there's I've got 53 things I'm going to run through real quick here.
Have a good night.
Because of course you do.
And that's all
We'll
the time
just
we have.
quietly
folks.
walk away, and he can fade into the sunset.
So there's something that I don't know what it's called, and I'm hoping one of you guys know. So there's a brand new book that just came out. That's like an art book that is this guy took electrical components and he grinds them down.
Yes.
And takes beautiful photographs of the components. And I can't remember what it's called.
Open circuits.
Open circuits. I think
Yes.
that would make the ultimate stocking stuffer this Christmas.
So nobody buy it for me because I already own it. And I actually happen to know the two people that wrote that book.
Oh, no kidding.
Tube Time, and I'm blanking on his real name because I know him from Twitter. And then the guy from Evil Mad Scientist Labs.
Oh, right. Yes, that's right. I
Yeah.
know who you mean, and I forget his name, but yes,
and I'm
that's right.
totally blanking on both of their names. But Tube Time US on Twitter and Mastodon now, although I don't remember what Mastodon server he's on, and Evil Mad Scientist Labs. So
Yeah.
fantastic book, wonderful book.
Look, it looks just beautiful. I don't have a copy yet, but I need to get it. So that's definitely a top pick for this year. Just a couple other quick things. I got an early Christmas present. So my wife's like, I got your Christmas present. Want to open it? I said, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. She says like, I know, but you're really going to want to open it. Okay.
Okay.
And,
I drive my
and-
wife nuts when she does that. So no, I'll wait till Christmas. Drives her crazy.
So it's one of these magnetic helping hand things, but it's like the deluxe model, and it's made by a company called, I don't know how to pronounce it, Novsbig. Novsbig. I don't know. Anyway, it's on Amazon. It's called Magnetic Helping Hands Platform and Holders, and it's got a plate that's about, I don't know, 6 by 10 inches or 8 by 10. And then it's got a whole bunch of magnetic things you stick on the plate. So there's 4 of those like gooseneck articulated hands with alligator clips. There's another like jointed mount thing with a thread. You could put a camera on it. There's a gooseneck with a LED ring light. There's a vise. There's little magnetic things that hold PCBs. So it's like $80 for the deluxe model. It's really, really, really slick. Put that in the show notes. Another one is a fume extractor, which is nice and compact. They're like $25. It is made by Kotto, Kotto. Now it's 120 volt AC fan, and so it sucks like mad, and it's nice and small. And it comes with a whole bunch of filters you can change out. I'm tempted to take out the fan and replace it with a Noctua fan because it'll be a lot quieter. And if it's a DC fan, you can also throttle it so it's not, you can adjust the speed. Otherwise, it's pretty loud. So that's a nice addition for the shack, especially if you're soldering up boards in the kitchen and you don't really want fumes everywhere, but you can't really open the window. And so this would be a nice addition. So I would put that on the list for sure. Let's see what else. I think that's kind of the it. Of course, I'd end with the Analog Discovery 2. I still love that little thing. You can't go wrong with it. They're coming out with a new power supply module. So there's like the daddy version, which instead of a little plastic puck is a box with the instrument, but there's a companion box that'll have a power supply in it. So that's kind of cool. So computer controlled power supply. I think that's about it for what I'd throw in there. Any last minute suggestions from anybody? You can always get a 6600.
That's a rare moment when none of us said anything. Did you catch that?
Oh, by the way, I do
was
have
on
one.
mute.
I do have one more. So since you guys don't have any other ideas,
We yield the remainder of our time to the member from Oregon.
Be careful what you say.
two things. I have two more things to add. So on the computer front, so Vince, I love your Toughbook suggestion. The one that I've been using mostly is a CF20, which is smaller. It's like a 10-inch tablet, but it comes as a clamshell, computer form factor. You could pop the tablet out. I don't think I ever will, but it's a little bit more compact version, and it's just super reliable, great machine. So buy them used for $300 or whatever. They're great. And so I learned something about my new destination is, as we've talked about, is in the Portland area, and I found two companies whose headquarters are in Portland, Oregon, that I did not know. Well, actually three. Okay. Company number one, Leatherman, is in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Company number two is Gerber, their competitor, is also in Portland, Oregon.
I didn't realize that.
So who knew? I don't know if there are factory tours, but if there are, by God, I'm going to figure that out. So I got to see how they make this stuff. So anyway, that kind of tickled me that and I love both of them. And so that their factories are there. How about that? And the other one is Geochron is outside of Portland. They're in Estacada, which is like 6 miles from where I'm going to be living. So the Geochron epicenter, the corporate galactic headquarters of Geochron, is going to be like down the block. So I get a sneaking suspicion that I'm destined to have one.
He's going to look for their outlet store.
Yeah, I'll be in the parking lot on a Sunday I'll be dumpster diving looking for the seconds.
They're a pretty small group, but I've talked to them and very nice people. When did I see them? Oh, in Florida at Hamcation.
Yeah, they're really cool. In fact, I've been emailing with one of the guys there. So I got hooked up with him through Frank, K4FMH, who Frank knows everybody.
He does.
So
know
Frank's
everybody.
like, hey, you need to know this guy at Geochron. And so it's like, oh, nice to meet you, guy at Geochron. And he's like, oh yeah, I know the area. But anyway, so we were emailing back and forth.
They're coming up with an update to their ham.
Do you know what it's going to do? That's different.
No, I blew by it. I can't remember where I saw it, but I'll have to go check because I have one, right? So.
Okay, one more thing I'll mention really quickly while we're talking about interesting companies run by hams and Hamfest and learning about it at Hamfest. I went to the Shelby Hamfest, which is kind of a larger regional Hamfest here in North Carolina, and ran into Marty W4MY, really nice guy. And he works with a company. He's not the owner of the company, called PhaseDoc. And I noticed that the Gigaparts is now carrying their stuff. And it's just a cool idea. It's something that you could make, but they just really thought it through and made a really cool thing. And so it's basically like these mountable project boards. So you can take your Arduinos or Raspberry Pis or whatever system you're putting together when you're building like just a project. And it's like pegboard stuff that you can mount each component to. It secures it. And you can it even has like little collapsible, like a case lid that goes over the top of it. I can't think this late in the evening. Like a little lid that goes over the top of it. They've got a bunch of different ways to configure it, and it's great. And what I was thinking about using it for is a project that I think one of my daughters wants to do as a science fair project, and it would lend itself really nicely to be laid out on that. And I also thought about for the Murphy bench, maybe using it in the Murphy
Hmm.
bench.
So
But-
so this
Mhm.
so can you describe what what does it do?
So it's a system of sort of these the what do you call those boards, like pegboards that you hang hooks in,
Mhm.
on a wall.
Yeah,
It's like a
pegboard.
smaller version of that. That's basically some kind of polymer that they make them out of some kind of plastic, and it has little seats that you can put your Raspberry Pi on, your Arduino stuff, your
Oh, okay.
whatever,
Oh,
and you can.
they're
It's like a breadboard for like a massive breadboard thing for
So there
big
you
components.
take your Arduino or Raspberry Pi, you put it on a carrier,
mount it
and
on
the
the-
carrier goes on a motherboard. Of
Yes,
sorts.
and all those things fit together so that you can lay out your project really nicely. And let's see.
This is the first thing that came
Oh.
to mind is the Radio
That's not
Shack
it.
P box kits.
Oh, Vince,
But
you're
that's-
invoking my childhood now.
That is
That's the
definitely
first
is.
thing I ever melted was a P box.
Yeah, me too. Sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
Well, no, these face lock
Thomas,
things
they
are.
were at Hamcation, and we,
Yes.
we as in Flex, bought a crap load of these for development work.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't remember. They were right across from us.
Yeah,
Oh, no
Can't remember
nice,
the name.
nice folks, and it's a really cool.
The husband
You
and
know,
wife
like I
team,
said, I think my daughter's going to make a hydrogen line receiver, and for like a little radio astronomy project, and that would be laid out really nicely on there. And I mean, they're cool. It's just really cool, and ham owned,
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of prototyping electronic things is you wind up, since you can get little breakout boards with bunches of stuff. Any project with like 4 or 5 sensors or whatever is like a jumble. You
Mhm.
got the Arduino and you got 5 little tiny sensor boards and the power supply, and it's just kind of a mess. So if that helps you organize it, that'd be useful.
Yeah.
Great. So is that it? Is that all we can come up with? Only 3 hours
I
worth
am
of stuff to
sure
buy?
if we keep asking, we can keep coming up with stuff.
Okay.
I'm
well,
sure we could.
with that in
So-
mind, I think we should call it a wrap. So
think so,
we've
too.
we're tipping over 3 here. So so thanks to the 3 listeners who are still there at the end of the show. It's been great to have you. I should wake you up at this
But it's
point.
okay. They're probably in Buffalo, so they've got 3 hours
Oh.
to shovel.
Well, it's good because we're running out of magnetic tape here, and on the
Is that
reel
on the
to reel.
12-inch reel or the cassette?
There's only so many bits in the card. All right. So, gentlemen, thank you all so much. Thomas, in particular, thank you for being here as our
Oh,
special
my pleasure.
guest and an all-around bad influence on our buying behaviors.
I didn't buy a
I have
single
3
bag.
You're welcome.
I have 3 tabs open.
Oh yeah, I've already bought that radio, and I am currently working on getting logged into my ARRL account since they moved domain names, and buying the handbooks.
Mark, I bought the
And-
radio too, so we got to figure out the protocol.
And
All
thanks
right,
to
we'll figure
Vince,
something
I
out.
ordered the loop antenna just a minute ago.
Rod, what you got
Nada.
there? You must have bought
I'll never
something.
tell. I'll
Yeah.
never tell.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, everybody have a wonderful holiday season. And I hope that Santa or your SO or your friends or whoever is giving you a Christmas present or a Hanukkah present or a Kwanzaa present or whatever you get, I hope it's what you want. I hope it's from our list because we got some great stuff on the list. And thank you so much for being out there listening. And to everybody here on the show today, thanks so much for spending all these hours putting together all these great ideas for everyone else. So with that, I want to say from all of us at the Ham Radio Workbench, 73.
73.
7-3 all.
7-3.
7-3 is
Humans.
Okay, now that the dry run's done, we can start.
All right.